can mess with the thing and put up the videos now.
I would go for it. So
Well, you can minimize.
yeah, you can use that. Okay. See. Did you say okay? I just passed you. Okay. Oh, you said okay. I just passed your exit. Oh, that was good.
Right this second, I said that.
That's 6:20. Something amazing has happened with this 2 videos that we are going to watch. That is the most.
Turn that off.
No, we have to listen to the
No,
volume.
right now it's going to the stream. Turn that volume on. Oh no, on that video for now.
Maybe it's not playing.
Yeah, but if it does.
But we do have to. We do have to listen to it just to publish.
Oh, it is.
We'll fix it.
Going too far.
We'll fix it.
We're fixing it.
Oh my gosh.
Woo! It's a hot one coming in hot.
Hot is the right way to. I am sick this week. I'm
Man.
on the road and
You're
just
like
got here.
we're feverish, and we're testing a new whole setup that Adam has been amazingly if you've seen any YouTube streams this week, is setting up for this amazing system. I feel like we talked about it last time, but now we're in the big. We're at the bar. We're at the bar now. Cheers,
It is. Oh,
Adam.
yes. Cheers
It's
for the bar.
Thursday. Cheers from the bar. Happy Thursday, everyone.
We hear
good.
yeah, so at this point we're on commercial break on Twitch.
Oh, okay. Right off the bat, huh, Twitch?
We went to Twitch. Okay, commercial break should be off on Twitch.
Okay,
so
good.
to all our Twitch peoples, welcome to the stream tonight. Let us know if you can hear us. That's going to be one of the other things.
I feel like we did this last time, but it's a whole new setup even from last time to this time.
Since last time.
Yeah,
Well,
so
you know what?
you can check.
I can check.
All right.
Let me
You
see
could
on
just,
this.
you know.
We'll make sure we're in a good position.
But
sounds good.
It
Sounds like we're in an okay place.
yeah. I had it coming up on my phone, so I feel like we're good.
You heard video or audio from the just the music, which was a whole different audio source.
Wow.
So that's why we need to make sure on this.
Mike Azul in the chat throwing up cheers. Love it.
Okay,
Yeah.
we are in a good
good.
position. I saw Mike Zool. I shook his hand today. He is
Amazing.
doing some amazing running. I am so proud of him.
Oh yeah,
Multiple
man.
5Ks a week. Good job.
Jeez,
sir.
is that the case? Wow,
I know.
That is really good. Hey, if you want to, anyone out there wants to join the double drop down,
crop it.
Gym Rats app, we're encouraging each other to be fit out there. Mike Azul, I think, is winning the app.
And only now did I find out you were sick. I feel like it's been an allergy thing, but I don't think it's
gone beyond that now. You
I
feel
don't.
like?
I don't know. I'm in a weird zone. Like I'm not sick anywhere other than congestion.
Right.
And when the stupid super cold to super hot, and then I
Yes.
spent all day outside for commencement, which was happening recently.
Right.
And I think it's just got me, because of all the goldenrod. Have you heard of what goldenrod is? It's like
color?
It's a weed. And
Oh.
yeah, it always gets me, and it hits me in the throat. Like if I run by it in the prairies, and at certain
really?
times of year, it always gets me. So
All right.
it
Watch
is,
out.
I
Watch
know.
out.
But anyhow, hopefully I'm not gonna have to run. I have a really interesting topic this week.
Yeah. It was fun. It made me. I swung wildly from one position to another as I was researching this topic.
So how I researched this one, it's called the depth paradox. And so what I was thinking about, and this is something that I've been thinking about, and we've been building too, is around these cycles of being able to output something quickly. And our ability as humans to learn and grow and retain and be able to be part of society because of the specializations that we do, and be able to return that kind of insight and knowledge back and feel fulfilled. And so this depth paradox is, hey, we got AI over here being able to spit things out in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then humans and the neuroscience behind it. We'll talk a little bit about this. I'm not an expert neuroscientist.
You're not a neuroscientist.
But I have done enough to learn a little bit about it. And what we're finding, and we're not going into it right this second, is that there is some human built-in things around how learning works that is contrary, and there's a huge juxtaposition to what happens with AI. So I am excited to talk about this. And so one of the things that I want to mention before we jump into some of the questions for humans from us is that I've been using Speechify. And this is not a sponsored video.
but if Speechify wants to sponsor us, we will listen to offers.
They absolutely should. But so if you haven't heard of Speechify, I was really kind of PO'd about the accessibility features of being able to read documentation,
they suck.
PDFs.
You
all
would
this
think it would
stuff.
be so much better now with AI. You think you would just upload a document straight to Gemini or something? They speak to you all the time.
Right.
Like there's a whole like audio, verbal thing that they do. But uploading a document and saying, "Can you read this to me?" It almost never works.
No, it's
I tried to do it
terrible.
literally today.
So Speechify, I'm gonna get ourselves lined up because
you're
so
offset.
Speechify is I have to pay for it. It's a large amount of money to
Really?
pay for it annually, but everyone
you're
like.
expensing that, right? You're just
Yeah, I need
expensing
to.
that to the company.
Hey, Higgs, welcome
Hey,
to the
he
double
Higgs.
drop down.
Thanks for hanging out.
We really appreciate it. We're going to need the help of the stream today because we are testing new equipment. This is the first time we're using the new Soundcraft UI 16.
Wow.
And so the microphones in this room are connected to the microphones in the other room. We're streaming to both Twitch and YouTube.
Hey, YouTube.
Hey, welcome to and then we had a couple people hang out on YouTube with us in the past.
We got to remember to check that chat as well.
I know. We're primary with our main
Like
audience
Twitch,
here.
you
with
know, our
Twitch.
main audience is on Twitch, but we can't.
But anyways, going back to Speechify, it's so cool because I've been able to upload documents and it reads it, and they have all these like sponsored voices. You have like Gwyneth Paltrow is going to read this
Really?
to you, and you have her official AI voice. And then what you can do is it does the same thing that Google's done with Notebook LLM, and it will do podcast out of your thing. So I put in today's kind of notes that I had
Outline
taken, and I put it in, and I was like, make it like a late night talk show that has some funny moments, and it's not as cool as Double Drop Down. Let me
course.
tell you.
We still have jobs.
We absolutely have jobs. But what was interesting is that how it kind of broke it apart. And so on the drive up and back from Fort Collins, there's about 6 hours where I listened to different iterations and like fed in some other documents and PDFs and research and had it give me some podcasty version of the research so I could listen to it and think about it. And it helped me to understand it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
I was really excited.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. So, like, your initial thought, worth the money?
it is worth the money.
Cool.
Because there's so many pieces of like documentation that I just wanted to read to me when I'm driving.
Especially driving. When you have
That's
to
the
drive
reason.
for 6 hours, like, what else are you going to do?
I've been doing these trainings and they're all written out. And I'm like, oh, I just need it to read it to me. Like, I can read it if I'm sitting there, but it would be really nice if I could.
And
listen
plus,
to
like,
it when
you know, you got this house, you got to be doing dishes and doing laundry and folding things and doing stuff. And it's just nice to have that, you know, not have to have a dedicated whole thing.
We're going to talk about the news in a second, but before we get there, we need to do a little test. So if you're out there and you're listening, can you tell us if you can hear this? We need to know. Are you ready? Can somebody hear this?
All right, it went down.
It's part of the show too.
Stealth mouse, okay.
All right.
Mike Azul.
We'll get to this. We will get to that shortly. Very on topic for the show. And if you knew what that was from that very small clip,
I know, yeah. You know, you let us know in the chat. You'll win a prize.
yeah, what prize? Ryan's giving away prizes tonight.
my
Hey,
undying respect.
Ryan, do you have a topic or a
Yeah.
thing to talk about? All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so I had a question for humans. All right, there was a podcast that I was listening to about AI. So I'm stealing this from them. So, you know, I can't even remember the name of the podcast, but so I can't even give credit. But like they had this question that I thought was interesting. It's about AI. And it says, which do you think would be better for humanity? Would you rather have a conscious AI with human-like emotions, right? Or an unconscious AI that just doggedly pursues anything that it's told to do? Right? It feels like there's bad sides and there's good sides of both of those. Isn't there like an omnipotent sort of AI god that also has, you know, feelings that can sometimes, you know, be like humans where they get really upset about things and go through that, or just like an automaton that doesn't care about any of that and just does whatever you tell it to do? What do you think? Which one?
I don't know. I think the first one that has a little bit of
human emotions?
human emotions, even if it's not necessarily real, because the other one just becomes that paperclip theory thing where it just
Right.
like continually goes and makes everything into paperclips in the entire universe.
God, but I mean, imagine yourself, being conscious and having the power, that some kind of super, AI in the future would have, but also having the emotions of going up as like a teenager and all of that kind of stuff. And, I don't know. I feel like that's also scary. I mean, I probably I'm mostly being devil's advocate because I think I am siding on your side that I feel like it would be better. We could like appeal to its, almost like, its pretend humanity at that point. I feel like it would be easier to control if it was sort of human, as opposed to bad actors taking that has no morals or anything and shoving forward with that. So I'm also gonna go with human emotions.
Well, it's a question for humans, so
Yeah,
we should ask
exactly.
AI a very.
We should. It's not questions for AI.
All right. Well, let me see if I can figure out something that I have here. So, man, I have a story that I want to tell, and I'm like, is there one of these that kind of
nice.
aligns with the story?
Just tell the story. Just tell the story.
Okay.
That could be the human story.
Fine. This is the human story,
Yeah.
and maybe it's like, do you have a sense when something's about to happen, and what is that kind of a sense?
Right.
And do you get that? Like, is it, and does it come true? Like sometimes you're like, this thing's gonna happen,
Right.
and I'm thinking more not big scale,
Sure.
but like little things.
Okay. So you obviously have an example.
So my brain kind of looks at the surroundings,
Sure.
and then I start to make like assumptions of what could happen.
Adam's like, he's born identitying this shit all the time.
I am not kidding, dude. When I drive, my hands are constantly white knuckle, and I'm like, that car could swerve here. This car could swerve here. I could happen. Like, and it's stressful as hell. Like, and I try to like get away from it.
Yikes.
So I'm watching this woman on a cycle go across the street, and there's these train tracks to the side of her, and I'm watching where she's going across the street, and I'm like, she's gonna either have to go to the right or she's gonna have to go over the train tracks, but she better turn a 90-degree turn or it's gonna get stuck and she's gonna fly off her bike.
She's on a bike. Okay.
She's on a cycle, like a bicycle. And not more than 2 seconds after I was like, she turns, wheel gets stuck in the thing, catapults over the bike and
Right.
like lands, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And like about to go run across the street to help her, and then like a bunch of traffic starts going and somebody else jumps on and helps her, and she
Okay.
gets up, and I'm like, okay,
Sure.
she's okay.
Right.
But like the idea of me like, it's about to happen, and then absolutely happened. It was like, oh my god. What are you doing?
Yeah, I do feel that people have like senses that are sort of going on in the background that you don't really like notice anymore. Like we probably noticed them a lot more when we were like out there in nature and having to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
And I still feel like there's too many generations of us living like that as opposed to living in like podcast houses or whatever, that like we were living in caves and fending for our lives. That like I still feel like a lot of that sort of comes in. I do have one story for that.
Okay.
Like there was a time where I was driving. I was living in the town that you are living in right now, Adam, and I was driving down from the town that I live in. But this was years before. This was, it was just a random time. And I remember I looked up and I saw like a Animal Crossing sign, like not the Nintendo game, like a deer sign that was like, hey, animals cross at this point in the sign. And I remember looking at it and being like, I bet I have driven by hundreds of those signs and not really thought about it. And I was like, I bet because I noticed this sign right now, like there's going to be an animal out here. And sure enough, like a giant coyote ran across the highway at that point, which like never we live in, Colorado. And so it could happen, but like I hardly ever see that. But I was like, wow, I bet my brain knew that like it was a full moon that night, right? So there might be more animals out. Like I might have known that, like not only that I had seen animals outside around this area before. Like something was putting in my mind that like I was going to see something there. And I don't know if that's like, it could also be coincidence, obviously, but I kind of remember thinking that and being like, wow, something was telling me that I should like watch out for animals on the road.
I think there's a thing with people staring at somebody. Like have you ever been at a stoplight and you kind of like you feel weird and you look over and then somebody's just like eyeballing you straight up and you're like, holy crap, like I can feel those eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah,
it's
that's got to be something in peripheral vision that we
I
just
don't know,
can't,
Chad.
like...
Do you are these moments that you have as well? Are there
I wanna
times
hear
when
any
you see
stories.
that? Like when the lady flew over her handlebars, by the way, she did not have a helmet on and Supermaned into the ground, and she must have been up on adrenaline and like her whole tire was all bent and everything. It was bad.
Man,
she's probably really embarrassed too.
and like gonna feel that for the next few days.
Oh my god, the way that she landed was so brutal.
Oh,
Oof.
that's tough.
All right, well,
do we have a news? Do we have a news?
Let's see.
Can we throw to the news or? I wouldn't
From the
have.
Hangout, it's the news with Adam and Ryan.
Woo!
we got some bumpers now on
Wow,
things. God,
this
it's starting to come back together.
Adam's tearing up.
This has been like 6 straight weeks
Yeah.
of like stressing out on this show, and like we're at least back to the bar.
We're back to the bar, but like the behind the scenes of the bar has been restocked with way better liquor than it used to. It feels like.
You know what else though is that we were so dead in the water, and then last week was like or the week before was a limped version of the show
because we were in the studio.
And now I'm using like probably the finalized pieces of equipment. So
Amazing.
I'm
All right.
pretty excited about this.
Well.
So on Twitch, it's interesting because we're kind of watching it right now. We are like significantly behind in terms of maybe 10 seconds, if not longer. I don't know how the lags work on some of this stuff.
I feel like it was better on my. I feel like it was better on my phone.
It's probably all different depending on where you're at.
That's true.
So, anyways, news today. There is so much news.
Tons of good stuff, and we're front loading like the legislation stuff. I would say, like there was a bunch of things that like passed this week, and I just thought we're like, multiple things came up in this, but we are going to talk Google I/O a little bit because that was a huge thing that happened this week. It was Google talking about all of their AI stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit about like how creative people are using AI. I thought that was an interesting story. But first one, do you put this one up? Do you want to talk about this one?
I think this one is an interesting one that
super interesting
that we should be thinking about. So it's our Protect Our Games Act. So are you a gamer? Do you hate it when those companies yank the servers so you can't play the game anymore, and you have a disc that you just spent money on that you cannot play? How BS is that?
Totally.
I am not happy about that. And so what happened in California is there was a bill that was passed called the Protect Our Games Act, and it just cleared a major committee vote. And it's marking one of the biggest legislation wins in this movement for stop killing games.
Yeah, because, all like a majority of games are online now. You're not going and buying a cartridge and putting it into your thing. Like maybe Nintendo games, I suppose, is still cartridge based. But like for the most part, they're online games. And so you're saying like you could be potentially spending 70, 80 and then, dollars and also way more if you're putting in, microtransactions and all of that kind of stuff and buying skins. And companies right now could just literally pull their game whenever, and you never have the opportunity to ever play that again, the thing that you bought. And also, I feel like a big part of this is sort of, preservation too, because like games just go away, and it's not like a movie where you can just now like watch the tape of that and somebody has that. Like you physically cannot play the games because they've shut down the servers.
Well, and so just to be clear on there's a lot that is specific about this one. So it's live service games, specifically. And there's some things that have to happen, like there's a notice before it's getting taken down.
Right.
And then when it does get taken down, there's got to be some way that you can still play it in an offline capacity.
Well, or they have to give you a refund.
Or a refund.
So they either refund you when the game goes offline, or they come up with some sort of offline version of it, because it would be ridiculous to be like, anytime you create an online game, you now have to support servers for the rest of eternity. Like, I get that that's not a feasible thing to do, but I also like the idea that there's some sort of offline version or some version that other people can then host on their own servers so that people can keep things going.
And I thought one of the cool things about it, and this is what I absolutely appreciate, is that games could have built-in fallback modes.
Yeah.
So you get your game, you do your online services, but guess what? It's not there anymore. You could still play the game.
Yeah.
And have some version of it, or maybe host your own little server peer-to-peer, however that would work. But I think it's a way that they're going to have to redesign some of the games.
Like it had a suggestion here for how they could redesign games, and they were like, they will just split apart the online version of the game and the, campaign or whatever, sort of the offline version of the game, and they will just be like, well, then one can die, and you could say, see, you can always go and play the campaign version of this, and so they won't have to support it. I mean, there's loopholes that I feel like there's going to be going through it, but I feel like it's a good direction at least.
And there was a bunch of pushback from some of the developers being like,
Sure.
You peasants don't understand servers.
It's like a burden, I mean, it's a burden on the developers to have to develop all of this stuff, like in a fully offline version of your game. Like, that is no small task.
Or some pieces of it. So, any case, I feel like it's a win in a sense, because if we're able to start thinking about keeping things in a little bit more perpetuity, that we'll have some different kind of design specs, and it's not going to be trying to stick it to the man, or the man isn't going to be sticking it to the little guy all the time.
Exactly.
I'm interested about
more
that.
stuff like that. And obviously it only passed in California, but California is so huge that a lot of times so goes the nation.
So going with this theme, let me explain what just happened. So there is this new thing. It's like, what happens when your EV company files for bankruptcy?
This is exactly the same thing, but not a $70 game that you bought, a $40,000 EV.
Which absolutely terrifies me about EVs.
Yeah.
So there's this thing called Fisker Incorporated. They filed for bankruptcy 2024.
I'd never heard of this, electronic vehicle.
11,000 owners of this thing called a Fisker Ocean.
Sure.
And they were basically stuck with these vehicles that depended on these cloud services, this proprietary software.
It's like they get updates and everything, like all the time. I mean, that's a huge part of owning a modern car, especially an EV nowadays, is it optimizing for things and doing that. And imagine just having a car that is probably even more than 40. They don't say, but like how much those cost, but a huge investment. And now, like, it's just basically, it's just breaking down. And we have had, I've had electronics like that. Like, you buy something and then the company goes, we're not supporting that thing anymore. And apparently, eventually it just sort of goes away, but not something that costs $50,000 or whatever.
What I appreciated about this, though, is the story around the owners, is that they banded together and they created this owners association. And so they were able to reverse engineer some of the software.
And when you mean owners, you mean like the people who had purchased the cars.
Yes,
right?
Sorry.
Like
the owners of
the cars.
the vehicles had said, hey, I know this, or there was an engineer that was in there, and they're like, we are going to make our own little sub company.
Jailbreak these freaking cars so that we can upload our own, updates to it. That's cool.
But the cool part of this is that not only did they say we're going to just go fix that and have the software, is they bought up all the bulk parts. They developed repair documentation, created this little insider thing to keep these things going. They've showed you how to flash this new firmware to the car so it wasn't on the proprietary stuff. And then there was key fob events. They were selling them for $250 before, then they got it down to $40 because they crowdsourced and bought it all. I love this, just the ingenuity and the behind the scenes of well, screw that. We're going to be able to make this happen, and we will maintain our EVs.
Imagine this for a city. Where you'd be like, we just make our own EVs and we just have parts for them and they're easy to do. I feel like that's kind of an interesting sort of way to think about kind of the future of these kind of cars. If you could do things like that, right? The one thing about this is it sucks. It still sucks. Yes, there's a community around it, but it still bites for the people who own those cars. That means a lot more work on your end as the consumer to be going to a bunch of Reddit forums or whatever about these stupid ass Fisker cars that you now have, and you're like, oh, I gotta flash my own thing and stuff, and like do all of these things that normally would just sort of come with the car and be hooked up to Wi-Fi, and now you have to do it all manually yourself. It's like that bites. I feel like it's shitty.
And I think what they're also saying, and like you said, the bigger picture here is that even with the game story that we just talked about, is that ownership is becoming like very conditional on some sort of connectivity to cloud services. And so, or even the repair movement, like your thing breaks, just go chuck it and buy another $1,000 thing.
Exactly.
It seems really out of control.
Well, and I feel like there's just going to be more and more laws like this video game law that is also applied to physical, more even physical items. Like you can't just come up with something, have a bunch of people buy it, and then say, well, the hell with you all, and bail out like that. That's fraud basically at that point.
I want to see the open source vehicle movement come in, where you start building
and
your,
you just
your
3D
EV.
print it all. Like,
that sounds terrible.
I feel like you could do it. There's plastic in cars, tons
Yeah,
of
but I
plastic.
mean, just the safety.
Yeah,
like
I
it would be
suppose
like,
that's true.
hey, let's just go build a random car, which people do. But thinking
like does that thing have airbags? Did you 3D print me some airbags? Yeah. I
Who
doubt it.
owns an EV car? Does anybody in the chat have an EV
Yeah,
car
that's
right
interesting.
now? I'm
Or a
curious.
hybrid car. I'm thinking like a plug-in hybrid would be pretty.
I heard that Honda is like billions of dollars in debt because they went full EV,
Oh right.
and they were like, "Ah, man, we should have went hybrid."
Tons of people did that. I mean, Ford made a whole thing. They spent billions of dollars making that new like EV like F-150 basically, and not selling. I mean, you got a government right now that isn't like giving subsidies, and all of that kind of stuff like they used to be doing. So
Well, I want to hear if anybody's getting an EV
Yeah.
next. Tell me which one.
Tell me which plug-in hybrid is good because I'm on the market.
I kind of want to get a Rivian, but they're all full EV.
Oh man, I went to not to poop on Rivian, but like we went up to Denver to this like art festival thing.
Yeah.
And there was a Rivian store, like a physical location where you
Sure.
can go in, and so they had them outside. And somebody in the parking lot across the street from them had parked their Rivian and then spray painted all over it like F Rivian, and these things are like garbage car,
Oh my God.
like in bright letters, and then just parked it like on the corner right next to where they do all the test driving and everything. And I was like, whoa, yikes. Somebody did not have a good experience.
Have a good
with that
Rivian
car.
experience.
I heard they were one of like the worst cars to for breaking down.
Really?
Yeah. Like it's on like the low end of the list of like cars that you have to repair a lot.
Maybe I shouldn't want one of those.
I know they're freaking cool though. I almost said the F word, but they are pretty cool looking.
I was in Denver yesterday, and my brother has been wanting to get one, and we drove by a Rivian sales area, and I got to see inside like the Rivians on big old lifts and things
Cool.
like that, and it looked pretty cool.
It does look
But
cool. Anyway,
I'm
do your
hearing-
research. Do your research.
I
for sure.
just haven't been. I think hybrid is where I would
plug in.
want to
I'm
go.
thinking plug-in hybrid is
Plug-in
still kind
hybrid
of
sounds like a good one.
Like that could be cool.
Ryan, bring us up to speed on this one. Is this a
This
you
is
one,
just
right?
one like I would like to hit on quickly. Basically, Minnesota became the first state to ban prediction markets. We talked about this a little bit in the news section a couple episodes ago, or maybe even last episode. And a prediction market is like Kalshi and stuff. Have you seen those commercials? And it's basically betting on anything, and they call it a prediction market, but really it's just sort of online gambling over anything. And we don't have to rehash all the ways that is probably not great for society. But basically Minnesota is the first sort of state in America, and tons of other countries have done this. Minnesota is not like, groundbreaking outside of America, because lots of countries have done that. But, they're saying, hey, you can't just go online and bet on anything of assassinations or anything that you could possibly want on these prediction markets. And I think that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb and say prediction markets not great for society.
Probably not. I mean, the gambling aspect and all the I saw that some guy was they were predicting some weather patterns and the temperature, and then they had a camera and there was this one temperature gauge, and he was going out there and blow drying it.
So I heard that was a fake AI image, but that idea could be happening.
I got tricked.
You got Adam got duped. He's spreading misinformation on our podcast. No, but
how can we not anymore? Yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to spend too much time on this, but I was just glad to see that happen.
That it was banned in Minnesota.
Banned
That
in
seems
Minnesota.
Like Minnesota and
okay,
things
so
are happening.
last one when it comes to like regulations that got passed, but I thought this one was cool because it's in Colorado where we live, and I am really interested in this. I have done tons of
Tell me
research
about
in the
this.
last
I
week.
don't know about this.
So what they did is there's been obviously you could get
What's the title?
Solar panels on
Okay.
your house, right? So it's Colorado becomes fourth state to legalize plug-in balcony solar, and so right now you can get solar panels on your house, right? But it's a whole big thing, and you're like installing them, and you're routing it into your whole system and everything like that. Well, like other countries, especially in Europe, have had these one things for forever, and what they are basically is they're just kind of smaller, like not fully like integrated into your structure of your house, more like you could set them up in your yard, say, and they're smaller, and then all you literally do is you just plug it straight in from that thing, not into an outlet because it's different AC and DC like currents, so that would explode, but like into a little box that converts the AC into the DC or back and forth, and then that straight into just a plug in your house, literally any plug that just goes into your house, and then it feeds that electricity into your house, and your, refrigerator or whatever can then run on that and use that solar energy that it collects to just run sort of like everyday appliances in your house, like your refrigerator. And
Love it.
so like, like if you were to get solar done on your house, what is that, like 30-40 grand or something
Yep.
like that, and you're paying it off over this thing. And yes, that does do a lot more solar energy because they're bigger, but you also, you're investing a lot. What if it gets by hail or whatever? These ones are like $2 grand. So, your investment is $2,000. They say they save between like $15 and $40 a month, depending on sort of where you live or where you do.
Considerable.
And so you're like, hey, that ain't nothing, especially when you're talking about like doing it up for a year. And so you're like, okay, maybe it takes you 3 years to pay it off or something like that, but you're not using the grid as much, and you're creating your own stuff. It's it's renewable, like all of those. And so I'm literally thinking about getting one of these for the house.
I'm thinking like I was thinking devil's advocate, like little shanty towns coming up, run on solar, which might not be a bad thing.
No, totally. It's good. You gotta have it somewhere. Well, so anyway, so the what sucks is they've been doing that in all of Europe for forever.
Okay.
I mean, this technology has been there, but like, guess why you can't do it in America right now?
Okay.
Because I'm sure like all these electric companies are lobbying
Yep.
against it, because
Yep.
that would be way more people. You could have an apartment and put this out on the balcony and get solar energy. Plug it straight into there and not have to pay, you probably have a smaller footprint in places like that. And so, that takes a lot off your bill. And so they don't want that. So they literally have to pass laws that say, hey, local energy, people, you have to accept these things and allow that electricity to be able to be produced and put back into the system from homeowners. And it used to be only Nevada, I think, but now Colorado, and there's a few other states that have done it too, but it's still only a handful.
It sounds pretty interesting.
I think about it. If you have, you get a sort of southwest facing part of your house, and that gets a lot of sun. If there's not tree cover, you just put it right there. $2 grand, pay it off in a couple of years, use it forever.
Take it to other locations too,
Well, and they were
probably.
so some of them were saying like, oh, you could fold them up and stuff. They're still weigh like hundreds of pounds to be able to
still
do
a
it.
pain
You're
in
not
the
like
ass.
you're not taking it to camping. Let's just say that.
I feel like if we're talking, well, this isn't legislation. This particular
You
one.
got to do the two together though. Is the problem.
What, these
Those
two?
two.
Oh God. Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
We will leave that for later.
I will tell
then.
you, because it's a fun surprise for the end of the news segment.
So last week we talked about a bunch of health extensions to your life.
That's
stories
right,
and things.
longevity drugs.
And so then after that, I talked to Stealth Mouse, and she's like, "You guys, you need to get a freaking expert on the show if you're gonna talk medical."
We should have.
I know, and she was like, "You don't even like know how to pronounce the damn words, boys." And I was like, "Damn it." But I think we should be able to try to talk about things that we can.
I'm an expert in almost nothing, so if
Right.
that's the criticism, then you got a lot to criticize.
But in any case, this is a little extension from that last time, and that's on GLPs. Did you ever figure out what a GLP is, Ryan?
What the GLP actually stands for?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, still no.
Stealth Mouse, tell us in the chat.
If you're out there, let us know what a GLP is. Help educate us.
Yeah.
But a GLP gene therapy trial gets green light in Europe. Ryan, I think you put this one together. You want to tell us a little bit about this one?
Maybe I can. I don't know if I remember this one.
Let me see if you put it in or I did. Oh. No, you did. Ryan put it in here.
Damn it. Well,
So it sounds like there's clinical trials approved.
yeah. Okay. Now it's coming back to me. Thank you, Adam. Yeah. It was basically like sort of the first round of us saying like these GLP-1s that have normally been for weight loss are going through the trials to say that they are for longevity. And so they were like, okay, it's the first time we're going through the human trial part of this to be able to say like, okay, is people who aren't necessarily overweight or needing those type of drugs for that reason, should they be able to take it for the inflammation side effects, like say if you have heart disease in your family, or if you have Alzheimer's in your family, or things like that, or even cancers and stuff, like would this help for that? And I just thought like, hey, it's interesting because we had just talked about that, and I'm interested in whether or not if they can prove that those have like anti-inflammatory stuff that can actually prolong life. I feel like there's going to be a lot of countries who think about mass producing those for their citizens.
So we have glucagon
Glucagon-like peptide.
Give us what makes that a thing? It feels like it's an AI. It's a GPT. GLT.
A GLP.
GLP.
Have you seen the peptides? Like, so there's, going back a little bit to the last show that we did with longevity, I've been hearing a lot about like these peptide routines, and they're like, things that you buy and you take them in their pills, and you go on different types of them at different times. I mean, this is very like Silicon Valley tech people who have too much money, but I feel like now that I've been doing research, like when I was doing the research for the last show, now I'm getting all of these advertisements for taking peptide strands. Adam, we got to start taking these and trying them on stream, just guinea pigging ourselves.
I don't know if that's how you give it to him.
Yeah, like that isn't how you give it to me at all. It's a pill.
It's okay. We got some expert advice from Stealth Mouse here, and it's a natural hormone produced in the gut. So it stimulates insulin secretion, slows stomach emptying, and signals fullness to the brain. So I think from a weight loss perspective, that's a good thing. And then, but there's other benefits to this that are coming out.
It's like the inflammation side of it is apparently the thing that they are talking about.
Ryan's very much on the inflammation piece.
Because that's when we did research for the last show, it just everything kept coming up that like the reason that your body oftentimes wears out is because your body is sort of in a constant state of inflammation, and that's supposed to be reserved for when you are hurt. But because it's not, because it's just happening all the time to us because of our bad diet or overweight or whatever, like, or even just living, your body ends up using that inflammation all the time and can't save it. Anyway,
good and bad sides to this. We're gonna have to get some more guests, and you know what, Ryan, this would be a great one to have somebody we could like ping on their insights and just be like, give us some more information. What's the reality on this?
Love that. I mean, baby people who got like master's degrees lately
in
that kind of
education,
stuff, you know,
that would
could
be
cool.
amazing.
Wow, could be cool.
Congratulations, Stealth Mouse, on your
Exactly.
nursing education masters.
Woo!
Hells yeah.
Good job.
All right. It's graduation season, and we have a number one fan of the show, as she calls herself,
of
and
course,
she's been there
of
with the
course.
multiple dancing
Multiple dancing
T-Rexes.
T-Rexes.
Hell yeah.
But an appropriate amount of dancing.
100%.
So that she
Not
doesn't get in
enough
trouble.
that a Nightbot-
Not that a Nightbot might come in and lay the band hammer down.
All right.
Okay, next story. This one, I caught my eye because it was about creativity and AI. And basically what this was, the headline was 87% of creators now use AI. And that doesn't mean that they are producing all of their stuff and incorporating it into all of their work, but it does mean that they are brainstorming or outlining things or creating sort of maybe like pieces of sections of their artwork and stuff. And what I thought was really interesting about that is, geez, that is a really high number, right? And obviously AI has been incorporated into tons of products, not only that we just use every day if you're not into art, but definitely if you are into art as well. Like those are in all the Photoshops, and they're in Canva, and they're in basically anything that you would be doing to create sort of digital artwork. It has AI into it. So I can see this number being so high. What I don't think is represented often is like how much shit that people get for using AI in their artwork by the general community, and I don't see it as much when they say, oh man, you're using artwork, or you're using AI to create your blog post, or you're using AI to write your emails. Nobody cares about that, but they see artwork done by even the slightly bitter. They even know that it had anything to do with AI, and they boycott it, or they call it out, or they drag it online. And I don't know if that's to me, that doesn't seem fair.
We have never used AI in this show.
Never.
We are part of that other percentage that I want to say. No, I hear what you're saying, though, is that and we had some questions here around, how many other, what percentage compared to the average population?
Right. Like how many people are using AI normally as opposed to that? I don't know. I feel like artists a lot of times, or creators, like I don't know how they define creators in this too, because it was specifically creators, so they might need to use technology, so maybe they're a little bit more plugged into it just in general if you're a creator nowadays than the normal public. But I don't know, like I'd be interested if someone in the chat wants to like Google that. I would be interested to know like what do you think it is, Adam? Before someone tells you
The percentage of people using AI.
using AI. What do you want to say? In
I was going to say
in
what's the
America,
population?
let's do America. So somebody look this up. So like America, percentage of people who use AI, what, weekly or something like that?
I would say 87%.
87%. Exactly
wait.
the same.
Wait.
Yeah, like so Laura's saying like 85% seems high for artists, for creators.
Oh, she's pulling it out of her butt, though.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
Because, okay, here's the thing. The reason I would think it might be higher is, have you Googled something?
right. Exactly.
Have you used a product? Because
Totally.
pretty much every damn product is putting AI into it right now.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, Googling something is using AI,
Like,
right?
even
anymore.
Google was saying, like, people are like, yes, yeah, you have high numbers because you force everyone
Sure.
to use it.
Yeah.
And you're damn
crammed it into your old product that everybody used, and
Man, I have
Anyway.
so many hot takes on AI, and like we're gonna get into it with the depth paradox today that we get
Yeah.
into, because it's not gonna go away, AI at this point, unless
Nope.
all the data centers go down and we can't use it anymore. But
do you have a plan for that? No, I was just kidding.
I do. That's why I bought this computer, so I can like run my own AI.
From the inside.
That's right.
Take it down from the inside. I love it.
That's how we're gonna do the thing. Okay, so per Google, what is this? Depending on 35 to 50% of Americans actively use Gen AI.
Okay.
like ChatGPT or Gemini weekly.
So I like, geez, half, like at the high end, half.
66% of adults and 85% of adults, according to Google
66% of adults. So maybe for 35 to 50, like, not including children and
adults.
octogenarians.
So the range is basically 35 to 85%, which is a pretty big range.
It's a pretty big range, but just a hell of a lot of people, right? For something that came out, 4 years ago?
Well, and the fact that how quickly was it adopted? Let's talk about ChatGPT, right? Like that was one of the ones that had millions of
fastest,
people.
growing thing ever.
I mean, the fact that people are talking about AI daily tells me that it's in every tech thing. Like you can't get away from it. It's absolutely like, how many times do you go to conferences or whatever, or people are talking about things and everything is AI? Like just even topics that aren't AI like adjacent end up being an AI from and
my
I'm gonna
experience.
bite my tongue because I have so many hot takes on this right now, but I think I'm gonna put it in the chat because like AI usage right now, I'm nervous about the future of how we're going to maintain this trajectory we're on so that we can critically think.
Save it. That's it. We only got a couple left.
I was trying to give people a little bit like a taste of it there.
All right. Did you watch any of Google I/O?
I watched a bit. And I heard like some people were like, God, their fonts just keep getting worse.
Oh, there was font beef. I didn't.
Yeah, there was font beef. They're like, man, it just
saying?
looks like a bad version of Arial. And they keep getting screwed. Like I heard that there's a new search engine after
25 years of the different. I feel like the big headlines that I feel like came out of Google I/O were like, search is changing the most that it's ever fundamentally changed in 25 years. Like that was sort of the big headline that everyone saw. The problem with it is like we don't get to try it. It's coming out later this year. It did look neat. So did you see how they were planning on changing
Tell us
search?
about it. Do we need to look at it?
Well, I think we should do this one for the later thing. Okay. But like basically how they were saying is like, say you were to search something about like, I want to teach my kid how to ride a bike.
Okay.
But like normally maybe you searched before in old Google, I want to teach my kid how to ride a bike. Well, now like the bar that you type in gets bigger, so who cares? But like you could type in more. So you're like, I want to teach my kid how to ride a bike. He already knows how to ride a balance bike. He's, this year's old. We have a bike with training wheels and I want to be able to do it, in a few hours or something like that. And so anyway, so what it does is instead of just giving you links or giving you an AI kind of overview, it sort of builds a UI specifically for that request. And it says, all right, here's now the request that you asked for. And it maybe has a video and an explanation next to it. And then a couple links to websites. And then, a different AI explanation about different ways that you could go about this. And then a shorts video queued up to halfway through to actually show you where, a kid is balancing on a bike in a certain way or whatever. And so it's kind of like builds the UI specific to whatever kind of question that you have. And then incorporates a bunch of different, modalities of how you could like get that question answered.
I bet you some of the advertisers are flipping out right now. Like, oh my God,
like,
SEO is dead.
No one's ever going to come to my webpage because they're going to have this all, everyone's only ever going to look at the
Our webpage is even a thing anymore.
Yeah,
honestly,
that's true. I mean, kind of like, I mean, other than
doubledropdown.com,
of course, which is a thriving, kick-ass website that everyone should go to for every single day.
But seriously, I feel like it's long overdue at this point.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see, what even surfaces on that, because that's going to be the new, how do we get on that thing?
Yeah. How do you get on the front page, right?
But,
still a web.
But the other side is like, is anybody going to even think like Google's still the thing anymore?
Right. That's true.
And it has to have enough familiarity for those people that are just like, I just want Google to do the thing. One thing about Google and what you just described about putting in big questions, like I think I was primed for AI because that's how I used to always prompt it. Was like write a big ass question like that, and I would never get great answers, but now I can.
That's true.
But I'm interested to see. So like, okay, we got the update to their search engine. They build their UI. What other things came out?
I would say, I mean, we could go through a bunch of things, but I don't necessarily want to. I feel like the coolest other thing that was sort of the biggest news out of Google I/O, I think, was Google Omni. And Omni was sort of pitched as the new version of kind of I guess Nano Banana and Flow, which is or Vio, which was whatever the Google sort of video creation was.
Should we watch this?
And we could watch this right now if the technology will allow us. Ooh.
Let's see if this goes. Let's
I think this is all just music, so I don't think we necessarily have to do anything. But basically, so create anything from everything. And so what they're saying is like, you bring us an image, we'll change it into this. You bring us a video, you want to change it into images, you want to add textures and video stuff to this thing, sure, bring that in. Bring us a video that you already shot and we'll add a bunch of weird textures and stuff to it. Like everything is sort of, hey, do a little drawing of a fish jumping out of the water and landing out of the water in like the most sort of kindergarten way you'd ever want. Like then we'll just make you a photorealistic fish jumping out of the water. And so what it is like, bring us anything and we'll output anything from that. And that is kind of the pitch that they're doing. Now, does that actually work? And, it does like 8-second videos still, so you're not doing crazy other stuff from it. It does seem a little more hyped than people are necessarily giving it credit for right now, but we'll see how it plays out as more people get their hands on it.
As I watched that, I had some visions of the future where we could put on goggles that change our lives to look like whatever the hell we would want.
Totally. Like AR,
yeah,
like
just like think if
reality.
you were like, I really want to live in Minecraft. And you just like put on Minecraft mode and everyone is in Minecraft. I look at you, you're a blocky character.
Exactly. The whole microphone, everything here that you would see, your own hands, or just pieces of it, right? You're like, oh, it'd be so interesting if you could do, have the keyboard look like that, or, who knows? I don't know. I mean, it's cool. I'm interested to play with it more for sure. I feel like the other one thing, we should talk about one other thing from Google I/O. Sure. And the only other thing is I feel like not even a product that they're putting out, but just sort of their idea of AI is kind of like they talked all the time about how fast their stuff was and how minimal amount of tokens that it took to create the things that they are doing. And so you can tell that this is just like a massive company who is saying like, what I think is going to be really important going forward is how cheap this stuff is and how quickly we can scale it up to as many people as possible. And so like them trying to make things faster and cheaper feel like really what they were aiming for this time, as opposed to being like the best in anything necessarily. But I don't know.
I think they know, and this is one of the big topics right now, is the token economy.
Yeah.
And how much so we're getting AI at a subsidized rate at this point. Yeah. And I don't know how much you've been in that market.
100%.
And so they are trying to transition to a mode of like, okay,
this is the enshittification thing of it, right? Well, you do it at a low cost and then like you take over everything else because people get addicted to it and then you raise the cost.
Is it so? And I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe we're going to get there, but it's also like you do subsidize so that you can get to a sustainable model.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have to do some version of that.
Right.
Is my thought. I think that in this case, it's interesting to see what they're doing. And the funny thing is, I have not done much Google AI stuff at all.
Gemini, you're not a Gemini user.
No, I've used it. Let me count how many times. 0.
Really?
I've not used Gemini.
So Gemini is what the my work does as an official thing. Like we are in the Google, ecosphere with the email and calendars and all of that. And so we get versions. So I use Gemini at work, and then for my personal self and for Network Leader, I use OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Claude, which I have pro versions of that different companies pay for. I pay for ChatGPT and the other companies pay for the other things. And I have found, so I've been doing where I just paste everything into all three of them. I've been doing that for a month now, at least. I just be like, which one's better? And then what happens is one really doesn't do well at the task, and then I just ditch that one. And then I put the response into the next two, and which one comes with the best one, and then I ditch one. And for a while it was Claude that was the best, and now I feel like I'm going back to ChatGPT. But you know what, it's almost never is Gemini. And the only time that Gemini is really good is this multimodal stuff. Like I took a picture of my sprinkler system control panel,
yes,
which is proprietary and ridiculous. Whoever came up with this control panel should be taken out into the street and shot, because it's incomprehensible how you set up this control thing for the sprinkler system. Boom, one picture from Gemini, it's walking me through the entire thing, and none of the other ones were even close to how it did. So still good Gemini for certain use cases for sure, but still always at the bottom.
That was on Gemini?
That was on Gemini.
So I want to tell a hot take on that, because based on what you said is that so I never put it into all three, but I'm always like, ChatGPT for me has been more of my, I'm gonna go in and start my conversation in there. I'm gonna get some just initial AI output, but it's always gonna be kind of lame, and I just need something to pop out in there. And so one of the things though that I was impressed with ChatGPT recently is I have a whiteboard in my office, and I was explaining this concept to someone around like leadership and like accountability, and like, so I drew a little chart and I drew like arrows to this, and then I circled things, and then I put like the first initial of like certain people's names, so like their names were on my board. And by the time I got to the end of it, it looked just like a mess,
like a madman had been up there.
Like if I brought you to this and I said, explain what this looks like, you would be like, it looks like you were kind of like graphing this and doing this, like,
and then you had a stroke.
And so I took a picture, and I was like, I want to see what ChatGPT would do. And I was like, what do you think this is? I was absolutely stunned. It described almost in exact detail what I had said.
That's amazing.
And I would, and to the point where they're like, I noticed that you used these letters here, which likely indicate people. And I was like, holy crap! Like,
totally.
The fact that, and then like they went in and add some gap, but it didn't put too much. There was no hallucination into it.
Yeah.
I was wholly impressed. I was like, oh my god. We're
toast. Pretty good.
Because where I was so overwhelmed by it is I imagined the future version of it having some sort of visuals on things and being able to comprehend the world around it and being able to see that and comprehend it and give it that kind of an output around it. I'm like, man, we are getting close to where it can like take a picture of somebody and be like, oh, that guy's face makes him like he's mad right now.
Yeah.
And this thing is happening.
And you're gonna have it in your augmented reality, right? And it's gonna be able to tell real time if that person is lying or if they're mad or upset. Like, that's gonna be a disturbing future that we are in. I will say that when I use all three, I would say that ChatGPT is the one that most like gets me, in the sense of like, it does something interesting or funny or cool or whatever, and I go, that was a cool AI thing that you did. It does the best of that for sure. But Claude Cowork does an amazing job of like me giving it some really simple, prompt, and it being like, hey, let's talk about it. And how do we flesh it out a little bit more, and asking like the perfect questions.
Yes.
And me filling in a little bit of it. And then it being like, okay, now I'm going to go away and think about it for like an hour. And then I'm going to come back to you with what I have after that. And that is like blows my mind still at like multiple times, because the amount of sort of like thoughtfulness that it does, and building it in all sorts of different modalities and everything. It doesn't do images and it doesn't do video, but it'll do like editable slides and all of that. And just like
Slides are great.
slides are so
They do a
great,
good
man.
job.
I mean, it just cut the legs out of a million different, like, you know, low end designers, which sucks. But man, the idea of being like, hey, here's what our brand looks like. Make us amazing slides that I can edit and that are in the right fonts and I can download in any presentation, you know, format that you can give me. Yes, please.
Claude, one thing about Claude that I've really appreciated too is it has an end in certain cases.
It does.
I was going back and forth one time, and I know with ChatGPT, you put it in there like, oh my god, one little tweak,
Totally.
and I'm gonna do this
It'll
thing.
freaking drag you out for hours.
Yeah, no matter what. And like, there was one time I was like, all right, I'm fairly certain this is what I want to do, and they're like, yep, do it, go. And it was, and I was like, are you sure? Like, no, you can't improve this.
Exactly.
Just do the
Just
thing.
do that.
I was like, oh my god, so amazing.
So good. Yeah. They all have their different sort of benefits and things like that, but it's
Okay, if you heard earlier in
Yeah.
the stream,
fun.
when we
Okay,
did this,
can anyone guess what that music was?
so we'll play it again right now.
Yeah.
Get your votes in the chat if you know what music this is.
Okay.
Come on.
Not this one. This is the like intro.
Yeah, it's a part of it. It's a piece.
Okay.
It's coming in. This is big news, folks.
Big news in 2 different ways. I can't wait to show you the next one.
Oh my god. This is like classic.
I don't think I would have been able to guess it though.
What?
I don't think so. I don't think I played enough of this. I'm giving hints.
I know. It's a game.
It's a game.
Anybody? Anybody?
Retro game.
All right, we're gonna do the reveal.
Yeah, do the
Do we
reveal.
need to do a reveal?
Oh, nice. Time Crisis 2. That would have been the shit.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Boom.
All right. Why are we playing this music? on stream?
OG Doom.
It has been on so many different platforms. God, this was like such a game that I played as a kid so many times.
Oh god. It's just it's good. Rocking it. Yeah. Like once you see it put together, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that.
All right. So the hot take on this one is, why is this important right
Yeah,
now?
why are we playing the original Doom soundtrack?
So something happened, and it has been the original soundtrack of Doom.
True.
It's been added to the Library of Congress National Recording Registry.
Yeah, it was deemed important enough or something to be added there.
Yes, it was. So it was, and there's some drama behind the scenes. You can go look at this, but it was composed by a guy named Bobby Prince. So it joins all kinds of artists that have some major things that they've put in there. But it really was the definition of the early FPS games. Like, I played a lot of Wolfenstein. I started with Wolfenstein on a computer, and then I played Doom, and I remember Doom just being like, oh my god, this is an amazing kind of feel. But 90s games, they put it on every freaking thing. It's like the test anymore. Like,
Yeah, can you play it on the the headset of the back of the airplane? Could you play it on a watch?
Did you know one of the more interesting versions? There was 2 of them recently that impressed me.
Okay.
One was on a lawnmower that had a virtual piece, and the second one, even more impressive, was on a pregnancy test.
Nice. Well, I bet that looked great.
Yeah.
I bet that's the way to play it.
And
for the true sickos.
So anyhow, Doom has this huge culture, this whole thing around what it is, and so for it to be inducted into that, we wanted to give it some it's a classic.
Yeah.
It's basically, once you get into that registry, it's a preserved kind of
Right, like we talked about at
sound.
the beginning, right? Like we need to preserve things from video games because they are a big part of our culture, and we don't want them to just necessarily, fly off into the ether.
The Windows 95 startup sound was put in the registry.
Dang, nice.
Minecraft apparently already skipped over it, and they had like a
Yeah,
volume,
that's
their
big
soundtrack.
enough. That's
but
big enough.
Doom is in there now.
Nice.
We just wanted to share that fun knowledge.
Nice.
And then Ryan apparently has a
Okay,
reveal
well,
here.
so here's the only thing. So we always end with a robot video. This got put into the Discord by one Adam Poshis here, and it's another Unitree. I feel like we're hype on the Unitree ones. They're just putting out fun videos, and so we're gonna watch this. Now, when I queued this up in YouTube right after I had done this, like guess what song is in the background of this official Unitree DD1? Does that not sound like the similar song? Okay, so we'll actually comment on the video, but like, what do you think about this mecha?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna play this.
Is that the Doom soundtrack? Is that literally the Doom soundtrack? It sounds very similar to me.
It absolutely is. $650.
What?
This thing.
No, it doesn't cost
$650,000.
Okay, there you go. It feels a little wimpy.
Wait, is that guy
to me.
actually in there, or that looks like a?
That looks like a freaking dummy to me.
It was a dummy.
And notice nobody in there now. So really, it's just like a sized up version of their small robot with like a cage in the middle.
It looks really sketch. Like I don't
like
know. Like
imagine
if I would wanna be
laying
in that.
backwards in that now. Like that's not comfortable.
Because you flip around probably, and this is the owner
Oh, they did maybe flip it
or the creator.
something.
He's like, yeah, check
Dude,
it out.
posing on top of it. I don't know. To me, it felt like this seemed pretty wimpy to me, as mecha as a mech goes.
I mean, but you got to rush to the end line, right? And be like,
I mean, it's
I did
more
the
just
first
like,
mecha.
Yeah, exactly. You're basically like, ooh. I mean, the only thing that's interesting about this is you're like, hey, they can scale them up from human size, right? So imagine if you just had one of those normal Unitree robots, but it was like the size of one of those Home Depot Halloween skeletons outside of your house. I feel like that's way more scary.
I thought it was kind of cheesy, but it's also interesting that because you got to start somewhere,
Right. I
And
mean,
you
if
can
you're gonna
get
fight,
into a
if you're
mech.
gonna fight Navi in the middle of the woods, you got to start somewhere, right?
Got to do the thing. Well, Ryan, is it time?
It's time.
It is time.
It's the main topic with Adam and Ryan on the Hangout.
Main topic time.
I have been super excited about this particular topic tonight. So it's called the depth paradox, and it's taken me some time to even like articulate my thoughts around what this is. And so let me give you a little bit of a outlay of what I want to talk about with everyone tonight. And so I'd love the chat's perspective on this, because this starts to go into some of the more deeper insights around what AI is going to do to us as we start to grow. And I've talked about the time machine and how we're losing knowledge, and the concepts around, and when I say losing knowledge, losing our ability to learn, so that we can then apply it to the next generation of people that are using AI. So if you imagine right now, your kids, and if they're using AI and they're not having an expertise or a specialization into it, and they start to trust it, and then the next generation does that, and the next generation does that, there's a point where you atrophy your ability to learn. We don't specialize enough. We don't have this ability to really understand what our outputs are. We're going to be trusting this AI so blindly that I think it puts humanity in a really tough spot.
It does. I feel like this is one of those conversations that you have to go past sort of like the economics of AI and things like that, and think about like us as human beings. we're not going to evolve in one generation, right? We're going to be the sort of same type of brain that does the same things, even with this technology that comes towards us. And if we are constantly outputting all of our creativity and all of our thinking and everything to machines to do it, I mean, it just makes sense that we won't be as good at that that we were before. And so I think it's like I think it's one of those conversations that you sort of have to have early so that you make sure that you're like not just going down the path, like you said, of multiple generation after generation, just becoming more and more dependent on that type of technology. And I do have some pushback from some of these that I was thinking as I was going through it. That's why I talked about at the beginning, like I sort of was swaying back and forth wildly as I was thinking about this, just in the sense of like, oh gosh, we should be making sure that we're preparing ourselves for that type of stuff. But then also, on the opposite side being like, well, I think the future is going to bring other opportunities for us to use our brain in ways that will still keep us thriving as a species.
I'm excited to have that conversation because there is the absolute science behind some of the conversation today.
Right.
And so I want to start with at least a little different lens, and let's take AI. Let's take it out of our insight right now. And so there's a gentleman by the name of Dan McAdams from Northwestern, and he spent about 40 years of his life plus doing research on something called narrative identity. And so we as people internalize our own life story. And so as we start to navigate our lives, we will tell ourselves a story. And as we start to navigate that story, it's how we start to evolve as humans. So when you're a younger person, you tell a certain story, you evolve to a certain point, and there's a certain amount of time that you take to evolve and internalize yourself with this story, and you have the time to do that. And then by the time, like, let's just use an example, like you get through middle school, and right as middle school ends, you start to transition into your next story of high school. You go into your college years, you go into your life, you go into midlife, you go into your end life. And so you are imagining where you're headed. You're constructing this story. You're telling yourself this story, and you build your identity based off that story. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I just want to make sure that we understand this concept. And typically, it's run in tandem with how long and how much things change in our lives. It's been something that has allowed us to evolve and say, I am going to put myself into this field of learning this thing. I'm going to specialize in that. And you could basically, in the past, hang your laurels on, I am now a specialist in this. I've gone through education in this, and this is who I am, and this is what I can give to society. And so it's also, and as a side note, if people say positive things about themselves and they lift themselves up, this narrative identity will give them this energy to continue going on and like also thrive. Whereas people that always talk negative about themselves are like, man, I always do this thing. It actually influences your own internal narrative, and you can actually have a worse life because you're almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy of what you do. So I only just preface this because I wanted to talk a little bit around like this progress that we have experienced up into our life, probably until the last maybe 10, 15 years, has been around this narrative story, this identity that we've talked to about ourselves. So as you have these things, and I was talking about there's themes of redemption. There's a bad situation, but you turned it good, and you grow from it, and you get out of that. And I mentioned the other ones that are a little bit negative. So as we think about this, there's a health link to this. It's as you have and you build this inside yourself, you are able to have a healthier life, and you're able to navigate these different components. Now, where I was most concerned and why this becomes something that's interesting to me is that we're kind of getting cut mid-story, mid-sentence in a lot of these things. And AI is coming and it's usurping this narrative identity where we can't now just be like, let me give you an example. Coders, engineers, those that have said, hey, technology is going to be how I can like make money in life, and they've just told a huge generation of students and people like, you should be coders and you should do this, and they told themselves, we're gonna code the future, we're gonna create all this technology that's gonna do the next cycle. And now AI has swung in and done that, and now we're questioning in our own internal narratives is it important enough to even learn this thing?
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if it's going to be relevant anymore.
Right.
And so now we're stuck in this, like, I don't even think I'm going to be relevant anymore kind of moments.
Yeah.
And so that narrative identity is getting a little bit crushed.
And I would say it's like before it was generational, right? Like if you say you grew up as a shoe cobbler or whatever, like you could probably do that in your working time of your life and be okay doing and just being a shoe cobbler, right? And maybe the generation next that came up had some crazy new ideas on how shoe cobbling should happen, right? But you were sort of like, we'll let them do that, and they grew up and they had a slightly different take on it, and they had a slightly different technology that they could use, probably an updated version of that. But it was sort of you could like hang your, like you said, sort of hang your hat and be like, this is the thing that I'm going to do during my lifetime, and I'm going to become a master craftsman at it, or I'm going in whatever sense that is for you. And you would say like, great, that's what I can do. Well, the technology, because technology is sort of exponential in that sense, and it just gets faster and faster and faster how much we can create it, I would say that, even the last generation before us had to think, they started with no computers and ended their career with like hella computers, right? And so they really had to transition. If you weren't ready to transition into the computer age and you were a baby boomer, right? You probably got left behind in that sort of thing of like becoming, the still useful to, the capitalistic society that we're in. And now, because AI makes it even faster than that, or the internet made it even faster than computers and social media, so maybe you had to, transition even then, but now AI is going even faster than that. And so like just like the exponential curve of us being like, we have to adapt as human beings to this or get left behind is just getting like faster and faster, and not a full generation, maybe multiple times during your career. Do you have to like entirely reinvent what you think of yourselves, of that story that you're telling yourselves? And man, not only is that scary, but like hard on you and your brain, and just like it's difficult to do that. Whereas before you could sort of you could glide into, a retirement sort of doing the same thing that you did 40 years ago when you learned it, but not anymore, I don't feel like.
No, and that's what I'm getting at, is that it was the space to have those transitions. There was an ebb and a flow to it.
There was time.
And there was just enough for the human to be able to absorb what that identity was, live with it enough that then they can start that next cycle, because it was cyclic. And you would absorb it, and you would be able to like, okay, now I've gone through this like adolescent phase, now I'm going into this more young adult phase, and during those phases you would be able to absorb some of these things, you would be able to adapt, you would be able to grow. And now we're getting cut off like in the midst of those, and so now it feels disorienting, chaotic, if you will. And our ability to then draw that narrative is being really affected. And so that's maybe also what we're having happen right now, is I don't know if you feel chaotic, but even in your own life, you're just like, man, why does everything feel so busy all the time? Why does everything feel so like it's constantly changing? I have to learn something new. And so this is to the core of the product, but I wanted to just like lay the idea of self and these narratives that we tell ourselves. And What's a little different about today's kind of discussion is I didn't break it into just 3 acts. I wanted to break it into a couple of them, and just we're gonna hit some.
You're gonna have to do way less than 16 minutes on each one, then, my friend.
Yeah, no. Well, we actually started way late.
That's true.
So we started over 15 minutes late in today's start point. So what I wanted to jump into a little bit is just how our brains work. So it kind of really helps us to get to this next step. Now, we talked about this earlier. We are not in the medical profession. We are not neuroscientists.
What?
But I read and I can look at research and I can start to understand things. And I've been in the neuroscience business of like understanding how it works.
Sure.
Recently.
How people think, how they learn, things
How they
like that.
learn.
I mean, if you're in education, if you're educating people, you got to know about that kind of
So
stuff.
there's a thing called LTP. It's a long-term potentiation. And what essentially it is, it's like...
Was that right, Stealthmouse?
She may not know on this.
Pronunciation.
Potentiation. Potentiation.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So it's essentially where these neurons in our brains, they fire together and it wires these stronger connections.
That's right.
So it's these synapses, and they strengthen, and so here's the thing. They strengthen based off of repeated focus on something.
Yeah.
So if you imagine yourself focusing on a concept, maybe even failing a lot of times, and you're having to recall things, or they always say if you're studying for a test, it's actually better to read and then like test yourself instead of just reread.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is when you're testing, you have to struggle, you have to kind of fail,
Totally.
and you're really strengthening these things. And now one of the things about this process is it takes time as well.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself the space to do this. And not only do you have to give yourself the space, you have to give yourself the rest. We talked about boredom.
Right, yeah.
And you have to, so sleeping,
Sleep, yeah.
just being there and staying, sometimes just like blankly staring is what they've said. Like, go on a run and think of nothing. Let your
Right.
brain just meander is going to help to strengthen these things, because there's some back-end processes, and they're not just back-end processes. And I want to get a little bit more detail of what's happening is that, and I'm going to, your hippocampus is what sees some of these little short-term learning things that happen. So these little like neurons are firing, you're learning some concept. And then when you rest, what ends up happening is they get transferred. And they get transferred into a longer term bit of your memory.
Yeah.
And so that was really important, is that like you could go and try to cram for that test. And if you don't sleep all that night, or you don't
Yeah.
have a time to absorb that,
Right.
they're not going to transfer into that longer term ability to learn.
Well, and I thought a really interesting thing that I use on the children, and I had read before, was that like what you shouldn't do is go and do a bunch of studying and then be like, now I'm going to reward myself with an hour of brain rot, and
Right.
then go to bed, because the brain rot is conflicting with the learning that you were trying to do. And when it goes to like filter that out into your long-term memory, now it's competing with the brain, with just sort of like the doom scrolling that you were doing, or like, the really vapid sort of media consumption. Like, it's trying to convince you of that. But if you were to just be like, no, I'm gonna study, and then I'm gonna go take a bath, and not do anything and listen to, music, and then go to bed, like, that's way better for you remembering all of that stuff than you were going to do than like going and playing Hades 2 for 3 hours like I did last night.
So one of the words, and I want to say it because I listened to this word probably like 50 times before I'm like, time out. I'm going to go learn what
does
damn
this
thing.
word actually mean?
Myelination.
Yeah. This is a Cal Newport thing, too,
It is
right?
a Cal, and this is going to be the huge structure of deep learning that we're going to get into in just a moment. But the idea of myelination is that there are these cells, and what they do is they basically they wrap these active circuits, and myelination is a good thing. And basically, what it does is it's an insulation, it's a fatty sheath that speeds up the signals. In by orders of magnitude, and it's going to help these different synapses and things fire and grow, and that's a part of the learning process. And so one of the things is there's some testing, there's some, of course, experimentation that's been done. They talked about mice that were learning these like complex motors tasks, and they had to produce these new myelinating kind of cells that would create these sheaths. The speed of these signals that were in there, and so when they were blocked, they wouldn't learn. So the skill is like literally inside of these components. And so I think this is really important. So we're going to kind of pivot, and I'm not going to go into
No, we can't pivot. I can't believe I went to the bathroom during this part that you talked about. I love this mice story about this. Because so think about this. They were able to block them from being able to learn things. Right?
Yeah.
By giving them some sort of drug, it stopped this production of whatever it was called, myelination, and it made it so that when they went to something new, they would just run their heads into it over. They wouldn't learn about how this new thing works and adapt to that. And I was thinking, like, could you imagine giving that to a human being? Imagine if you had that. And somebody was giving that to you, you would just not be able to learn, like say you were just learning about something, and we as humans take that so much for granted. Could you imagine a drug that would make it so that you would just do things and spend a bunch of time studying and then have absolutely no idea and able to like comprehend it at all? That is scary to me. I was like, man, there's a drug for that?
I mean,
Yikes.
There probably is. It's probably
terrifying.
Called pot or alcohol.
Yeah,
I know all these other things. I mean, there's some likelihood that there's things that inhibit or prevent some of that myelination from happening.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, this is good. So Cal Newport has written a book called Deep Work. And so he's based his perspective around deep work around this myelination. It's something that we really want to create. Yep. And so we're going to take some time to talk about that in just a moment, because one of the important things about deep work that we're going to jump into is, so Cal Newport, author, has written about this, and he has some really strong suggestions on how you kind of navigate into what deep work. So let's just get what deep work is out of the way so we can have this conversation. So deep work is something that is a skill that he believes is absolutely lost at this point and very difficult to get into. And those that survive and start to move forward will be able to do this. And so it's where you can focus on a very intensive kind of task to invoke some of this myelination that happens, or at least some of the learning, and then you'll have to rest from it, but where there's no distraction. That you have a long duration of time, let's say not just 30 minutes, but like 3 hours or like a week of time where you wake up and you do your learning and you step and you just focus on that. You're not distracted. We talked about the attention economy before on the stream, where we said, there are folks that are out there that they realize they want to take away your attention and they want to take away your boredom, because that's the area that can happen. He's basically saying, cut social media, cut being in these like shallow kinds of connections, or multimedia kind of like short videos, things like that. Social media is what I was trying to say, and like be able to take that out of your life and focus on some of these deeper learning activities in your work or your craft that you're in, because that is what's going to allow you to learn, get into more creative kind of outputs, be able to apply it to better like thinking as you go forward. And so the idea is it's a practice. It's become much more intentional. And then there's the moments too where deep learning can take years. Like you can't just tell somebody like, hey, go do some deep learning next week. Like sometimes it might take a couple weeks. It might take months. It might even take years.
Yeah, I think his big thing too is that like the way that business and society is set up right now is to distract us, right?
Correct.
Because you have an attention economy, and not just even, from, social media and apps trying to distract us, but I feel like also just the work that we do is more fast paced and more like geared towards, get as much done as possible and communicate with each other at every moment with notifications and all of that. Like, all of that, so not only regular life but also work life is all just brought up in a way to distract you all the time, to keep you constantly task switching all the time, and that your brain is just like not set up to learn and to absorb things in a good way when you're doing that all the time. And so his thing is like, yes, you should go in and you should have like intentional time when you are doing, not being distracted by anything else, and that in that way you can condense a lot of the work that you are doing into smaller sections. If you just erase all of that, do your work in those smaller sections, and then maybe sure you can go off and do things. He is also very anti-AI from what I have seen, like in just, the latest videos that he's doing. I said, because Deep Work came out like a decade ago, and so he's been doing videos that are like, hey, what would I update? And there it is. That was not the one that I saw. I thought it was like two big things.
There's different iterations. I think this is his maybe a potential updated version of it.
Yeah.
But great book if you haven't seen it, by the way.
Yeah. And so anyway, so that's his big thing, that like the way that you learn things and you become valuable is that you don't take shortcuts and you keep yourself from being distracted. I worked with Workday for a little while to create some infographics for them a couple of years ago, and they were very into the idea of like you having uninterrupted, non-distracted time in your day. And like, we are going to, like, they as an HR leadership development department were like helping leaders to build that into their days, where they just had whole hours where they got no text message, no direct messages from anyone and no emails, so that they could just sit there and work on the things that were like, most powerful. And that's how you keep people creative is what Cal is saying.
And they say, they call that the shallows.
Yeah.
Is that if you're doing work that even could be maybe just mindless in certain cases,
Sure.
or very like shallow, you're going to not be completely focused. It's not going to create any of those synapses that insulation isn't going to start to happen. And you're really not going to absorb. You're just going to constantly stay shallow yourself.
Yeah. My worst part, the thing that I find myself cringing about of Cal Newport is it seems very like business, you being as focused and productivity as possible, right? For like the culmination of your job, making money, like how do we make you the most productive person that you could possibly be? And I kind of go like, I don't necessarily, like, there should be times at my job where I am not productive. Like there should be times where I'm just sort of thinking about things or socializing with people and making connections and things like that. Like, I don't know if every moment do I need to be like maximizing my attention.
I don't know if that's, after reading his book, like it goes into some deeper depth of saying like he would do certain things, or there would be some examples where somebody would take a month out of a year to be able to do their writing for a book. And so they were like, there's going to be the shallow times that you're going to have in your life, but to be able to build that time, and it's not on a week or a day time frame. Sometimes it's over the course of years, and sometimes it's over the course of months that you do that.
Yeah.
But once you get there and you're in that deep work phase, that the outputs that you get from that could be massive in terms of what you can kind of do. And so I don't want this to be about deep work today. Like the concept though is that there is science behind the fact that if you focus on something, you dive into it, and then you also, we know the human brain does this, and this is actually part of the learning cycle, is you forget. Yeah. And forgetting is not failure. That's the important part of this, is that forgetting is a piece of it, because then you have to review, you have to look at it and within a certain time frame, and you reabsorb, you retest yourself, and then you start to retain better by doing that. So our brain is going to jettison things out because it has so many inputs that in certain cases, if you're truly trying to learn something, you have to have a differentiated experience in that learning. The whole premise of where we're headed here, as you might start to see, is that we're saying that deep learning, neuroscience really backs up how we learn as humans. This is how it happens. It's like, this is not just like a conjecture around it. There is science that backs this up. And now on the other side of it, we are having these outputs that are coming out from like AI. They're having, the fact that you can go in and you could be basically an expert that's shooting something out is insane, because we're now expecting everyone to be able to use AI to get these outputs out, but it is not enhancing our brains.
Sure.
It's not enhancing our learning. It's not allowing us to move ourselves forward. So the problem that I would say that I would go to goes back to the episode when we talked about attention, when we talked about like our boredom being under attack. And so I think it's important for us to talk a little bit about the attention economy for just a second, because that's really what's destroying where we're at right now. Is I do believe that, and this is where we build on ourselves, Ryan, as a double drop down stream too, is that when we learned about boredom, we started to understand the neuroscience behind what was happening when we were bored. Our brain is processing things and recreating these connections. It's helping us to really like cement that learning into our brain, because it's not super active, and a sub processes in our brain is moving it into different components of it. And so when you have this attention economy that comes in here, and it's starting to draw our attention to these very short kind of videos or short kind of connections with things, we are never able to go deep. We don't have the time to do it.
Sure.
We have to fight for that deep time to make that happen. And so like even the idea of multitasking, that's like one of the biggest things that is a challenge, is that we cannot multitask. It's been proven that we are not good at it.
Yeah.
We do not get into that detail there. And then think about the systems that we've been building around ourselves. And so all I'm trying to say is that we're having to fight against this to be able to get into learning. We're not even touching AI yet.
Yeah.
And
But
like,
even still,
the infinite scroll.
Yeah.
The ability, and like I always remember you sitting here saying like the friction, and I really had to like understand what you meant by friction, but the friction of being able to get out of that damn thing and get out of that scroll so you could think a little bit more. And so what was it? Asa Roskin had regretted. He was the creator of this, and he was
the
like,
infinite scroll.
he was like, it removes the stopping points where your metacognition kicks in.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say around this piece of it was that as we start to think about this attention economy, is that all the stuff that we're going to come after this and talk about in just a second here is based off of the attention economy really taking away our ability to think for ourselves, to really get to that deep learning. I think this is where educators are concerned, because you hear about it at schools, like kids are not engaged. They're always wanting to be on their phone. It's really hard to retain. We see scores and all of the different things like tanking because they're constantly on their phone. They're constantly being engaged in short-term videos, and they always have devices around there, and we're not giving them enough time to absolutely deep dive into some of the work and the things that they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I feel like a big part of that is just like, not only is it at the attention economy side of like media, but it's also just in the work that we do and the expectations that we have in our lives.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when you go to work, you know, the idea that you're producing more and being on, you know, the hustle culture that we had talked about before, that you're always sort of doing something. Like I do, you know, I'm lucky enough to work with like people who live in lots of different countries, and like New Zealand and India and Singapore and Europe and all those different places. And I would say like the United States is the worst for taking vacation, right? Like logging off at the right time, not being available on, you know, email and chat and stuff like that. I just feel like we are sort of, you know, maybe it's just my personal anecdote here, but I feel like we are the most sort of like caught up into that like culture of just sort of next thing. And in some ways that's good. Like in some ways that makes, us like, our thing more competitive or whatever. But I also just feel like, it also lends itself to a very distracted and constantly task switching and busy all the time mentality, which definitely not probably good for the long term of us.
No. And I think that's where the concern comes in here. And how do we start to combat that in a way that, I mean, how do you become intentional when you're constant? Like, you don't even know to be intentional.
Right.
is the thing. It's like we have to go do a full podcast around this to have the conversation and like read full on books and start to say like, oh, deep work is an actual thing.
Right.
When science has shown us it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's in the society that we're in that they're like, it's almost like they don't want us to deep think, and I don't know who the they is at this point.
I think it's less sinister than that necessarily. It's just sort of like capitalism, right? It's just like push forward and do more with like what you have, and what we have right now is like amazing tools, and so we're just like, I want to work on a bunch of different things. I mean, I feel like that is sort of human, is that we want to work on things and do stuff and get people excited about things and have the reward of it and the idea that we're going to get rewarded more. I mean, I feel like all those things sort of pushes us a little bit more towards, that hustle culture that makes all of this sort of deep work even just harder to do.
In 1998, there was a lady by the name of Linda Stone, and she coined this diagnosis. I really thought this one was funny. And, I mean, interesting how she called it CPA. It's a continuous partial attention.
Yeah.
And it's basically FOMO. You always want to be a node on the network. You don't want to miss something.
Sure.
And I went deeper into this, and I didn't really put it much in the notes, but one of the things that humans thrive off of and go deep when we start to think about learning is curiosity. And have you thought about like when we've had this conversation, like back before the internet was so pervasive, we would be like, how do you do that thing? And then you would be like, I don't know, but maybe you do it this way. And we would go back and forth between like a dialogue of like how it could happen. And the curiosity would drive more like, let's go look it up at the library, or the next time you would think about it, because there wasn't an instant answer machine that was there. And so you had to engage with it. You had to remember that you thought of that thing that one time. You like go to sleep because maybe you couldn't go to the library till the next day. And so now that curiosity has driven this longer, deeper thinking that's happened over time.
Yeah.
Now, think about what's happening in the attention economy. Thumbnails, little short videos are going to drive curiosity.
Yeah.
But it's shallow curiosity.
Right.
And does it give you the answer a lot of the time? No, it doesn't. You're like, oh man, that like little thumbnail, that looks interesting. And it gives you no payoff. And it's nothing that you're going to drive down that deep thing. You're just going to get the dopamine hit. And right when the dopamine hits, you're going to go to the next one and the next one and the next one. And so I think those are the kind of moments that we're finding ourselves really, really, really stuck in. And like, I even find myself in that myself. It's like hard to break that out of and get that friction. But I think we do. And I think we can.
Yeah. I mean, like at that point, like all of the Googles and the YouTubes and the TikToks and all of that, like you're almost looking up things and then it just sucks you back into a thing where you're like, oh, I want to learn that thing. And instead of calling your friend, right, or doing some kind of social thing or going a place and finding it out, you ask the internet. And the internet just sort of draws you in with all of the hooks that was designed for, back into not hanging out with people, not using your brain in that way, but just consuming. It's tough.
It's very difficult. And so as we start to think about this, and we talked about in the boredom, it was the default mode network. And so it was essentially it activates when we're not focused. That's the boredom piece that we get into, is we're just not getting there. Yeah. And sleep helps do some of that work, but the boredom is also another area where that allows it to run.
If you can't do it with boredom, we just have to knock your ass out for 8 hours a day and force the boredom onto your brain so that it can understand things.
And so as we start to go forward, I just think that the brain is designed to learn through having a little bit of that depth. Where like the friction behind it, the failure behind it, your ability to focus in on things, rest in between the times that happens, and then we are combating that in this huge environment that's like basically saying, no, we're gonna
Don't do that.
We're not. They're not even saying don't do it. They're like, we want you in our platform, and we're not gonna even think about how it's affecting you in a way. So here's the deal. We are in this distracted world, right? So as we start to navigate this, how do we find ourselves to get in this distraction-free world, Ryan? And that's a question that I would first to have is that if deep work, and we know that deep work allows us to learn, it allows us to specialize, it learns us to like go back to that story that we tell ourselves that allows us to grow in humanity. Like, do you find yourself even in deep work moments before even the concept of deep work was like mentioned here?
I mean, like we talk about flow. Like I remember that was a big thing when you and I were working together. Like that was sort of, there were TED Talks on that and things like that where you'd be like, oh man, I'm getting into the flow of something, and you could only get that at certain sort of times, and it was hard enough but not so hard that you gave up. And they talked about it in video games, but they also just talked about it in work and things like that. And I feel like it becomes harder to get into the flow if you're constantly getting dinged with messages and getting distracted with different aspects of like work and life and everything. And so before I even thought of deep work in that sense, I sort of thought of like getting into the flow of something and being absorbed in it completely. And I just feel like in society now, that is way harder to do than it was 10 years ago. So obviously something has changed that makes us so that we just don't get into as much deep work as we used to.
And so I would say this is the point where I would really encourage the intentionality of getting into deep work.
Yeah.
So if you're out in listening to us right now, the premise that we would get it is that deep work in and of itself is really important, and it's going to be more important when we get into this next conversation around what AI is doing and how quickly it's changing things. But just to put the little end cap on deep work is that it's activities that are really performed in these distraction-free components. And you had mentioned earlier, like he was talking about being professional and like it being like a work-related thing, and I think he did put that piece on it. But one of the things about the learning process that they mentioned is it does have to have challenge to it.
Yeah.
Like you can't just like deep work and not have something that actually like stretches you a little deeper. And so once you're in that distraction-free concentration and really pushing yourself to your limit, and that's I think kind of what you're mentioning with that some of that flow component, that is what you need to do to really get your brain moving and starting to create those connections and those synapses that are going to strengthen. Now, the shallow work, that is the stuff that is just like, it's almost logistical. It's very small. It's like repetitive. It's things that you would do over time. It's like email. It is terrible low shallow work.
Right.
If you're waiting for the damn little ding or like some new message to go in and you're always answering it, and I've had a hard time with that. I'm going to be honest. I had to like ignore my email and come to it only at certain batches and then do that because it would distract the hell out of me and I never would be able to get into deep work. And so it's going to be intentional. And so if there were certain things is that you could build some rituals, you could put time blocks on your calendar, you could literally leave your office if possible or your house or wherever you're working to put yourself in a new space that tells you there's now time for deep work.
Right.
And I found myself doing that a little bit more. One of my tricks had been I went to a coffee shop and I would literally get in my car, drive to the coffee shop, and I was like, I need to spend 3 hours doing this thing and I need this 3 hours. And I wouldn't even turn the internet on. I would just have like a document on the machine itself, and it was so amazing. Even though it was loud, everyone was talking around, like I felt like I was still in this little bubble and I was able to get some of that work done. And so the other thing too, and I did this, and I think you knew that, I quit Facebook, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't really post. We do have our shorts,
Reddit,
which are important.
You're
But like
not doing
I
Reddit?
got out of Reddit. I started like I put certain social media things like 3 or 4 levels down in my phone, so there is friction and I have to think about before I get to those. And all of those practices help me to somewhat drain some of those shallows.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to get to the point where, when we're talking about AI and stuff like that for this, but I just feel like the general, no matter what you are doing, it is beneficial for you to work on it and concentrate on it for long periods of time. Right. Like, and the idea that you are being more productive by bouncing around to a million different things, it feels productive in the moment, but like it has been shown to not be all that productive to you and probably detrimental to your brain. So, I mean, I feel like, that Cal Newport stuff, good in that direction.
In perfect transition, Ryan, because that's absolutely where we're headed with AI, is that is the new distraction.
Right.
That is the new, I wouldn't call it shallows per se, because shallows, I think, infers something that's maybe a little bit
I would
more. So I could make an argument both ways.
You make the non-argument and I'll make the
why it's not.
Yeah, you make the why it's not shallow.
Because what it can produce in certain cases is an output that aligns with an output that somebody actually that's specialized in a field or somebody that has that learning and ability can output, and AI can output that same thing.
Sure.
And so because an AI can actually produce that poem, that project management plan, that detail, is that on the surface you may not even be able to differentiate between a human's production of that and an AI's production of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the differentiator for me. Now, could you go down the rabbit hole and say like you could use it really bad? Probably.
Sure.
But what I was trying to say is that on that side of it, the output, the performative piece of it, the performance of it is good.
Is not shallow.
It's not even I wouldn't even put the shallow part. Yeah, because it could be like actually workable. But the way that you got there is that if you spent 0 time and you spit out an amazing article as like a grad student or somebody that had no skill set in that, your boss might be like, oh, this guy's got this. This is amazing. Great job. You did the thing. You learned nothing.
Yeah. And I don't understand. Like, I will argue the opposite side of that of course that is shallow then, because the reason that you do shallow work is it doesn't take that much brain power, right? Answering an email of somebody having a question that you've answered, probably 50 other times in your entire life. The reason that that's shallow is it doesn't take that much effort, right? And using AI doesn't take that much effort. And you could still feel good, you could still do a good output, a deep output, but with shallow effort, when you're using AI. Now, that's an output that we're used to right now, because we were, before 3 years ago, to make a deep output, you had to have a deep input, like you had to deeply think about something and do something to have a deep output. And so now it doesn't take that much. It takes a shallow amount of effort to create a deep output, right?
Right.
In the way that we think of deep output now. But what I would say is that we're not thinking about how the future of this is going to look. And in that case, you can get what will be expected of deep output will be way more than just prompting a little AI and getting a research report, right? Like, your boss right now, maybe because we're in this transition and they don't know about it, and we're still in sort of taking the way that we output right now and thinking about it previously from the past, it takes very shallowness to create something that we think is good. But I think in the future, that amount of effort will be just the same. You creating an entire research paper and presentation around it will feel like you just wrote off an email to somebody and answered a question shallow as before, right? Whereas in the future, for you to be useful and for you to be like pulling your weight and seeming like you're doing deep work, you might have to create 50 research reports and use a bunch of different AIs to check it and make sure that it's perfect for the way that your audience is looking for it and everything. And that will be hard, and that will be, I would assume, sort of difficult, and use your critical thinking to orchestrate a bunch of agents to do things for you. And then that will feel like deep output because it will take deep input from you to do that. We're in the in between where we're still thinking about legacy output, and AI can do that now.
Well, and so number one, I think we're getting to some of the next steps in this. So you're good. I would agree with you, and I would say that we're talking about two separate problems here.
Yes.
And one of the things is.
Yes.
The performative side of it is it's there. We
Right.
can see that. The second argument that we're having is, okay, because we can get there so quick, it's not benefiting the human side that we need to develop and learn.
Yeah.
And so
Right now.
And I think Darth Oregon said it. Oregon said it well in there. It's like fear of AI taking over a lot of things, like the loss of artistry in the world. I mean, artistry is a great way to think about it. Is that this low output kind of ability, and you have something that outputs it, you're like, that is amazing. That looks actually pretty good. But the person that maybe output that did not have the skills to actually understand what just was produced. And so if you kind of like distill that into like the writing, the LLM work, or any other kind of like AI output, is that at a certain point you're going to get these the performances there. You get it to a certain level that might even be, debatably as good, if not better in certain cases as what an artist could produce taking that time. But we're going to lose the abilities that took us to get to that point that you could actually produce it without AI.
Yeah.
And the person that, like, a great example is, okay, you're a lawyer, right? A refined lawyer that's had, years of experience, let's say 30 years of experience. They go and put out some sort of a report or information that gets laid out. They can say, oh my God, that's BS right here. This needs to be refined. Whereas somebody that's just in their career, they might put out that report and it looks great. Their boss is like, oh my goodness, this looks amazing. But then once they get into the weeds of it, they didn't push back enough. They didn't know where to push back enough. Mm-hmm. It looked great. It was actually passable at a certain point, but they didn't distill it down. They didn't have that thought process. They didn't get into it at that point.
Yeah.
Those are two separate things.
Two separate things. And I do think there is a world where AI still, us and AI still has you using your brain in a new and different way. It's just not the way we used it before.
100%.
Right? So like, you talk about coders, like we talked about coders at the beginning of this, like they are afraid that they can't, like get a job and that it will like take over and do everything that a coder would do. What I imagine is that in the future, they will just have different types of jobs, you would think, where you're coming up with new ways of using, AI agents to code even more complex projects that you could ever even possibly imagine right now having to do it your own self. And that those types of projects will be, force our creativity, force us to think about things very deeply. And then I think you just sort of grow in the same way that the shoe cobbler back in the day, like did one a certain way and then his kid did it slightly different. We're just now this is just a new variation of that. That's sort of the optimistic side of like, us and AI working together into the future and still saying, using our human parts for what works really good for that and still us keeping up with it. I hope that's the way it goes. There's no guarantee though.
Well, but here's the thing is what you're saying is what I think we're trying to get to the resolve is that right now you could go prompt an AI and it's going to spit something out and it's going to look pretty damn decent in a lot of cases, depending on how you prompt that. It's now going to be the intentionality in which we approach it that is going to either help us learn or we're going to be slopping out some crap.
Yeah.
And so if I were to go and build that, let's go say I'm the lawyer report. If I say I need a report to do this and it spits it out and I had low effort to spit out something versus I'm going to go spend some deep work time to write out what my first draft is instead of asking AI, can you give me my first draft? And now you've not really like learned, you haven't put any of your own thought into it, you haven't put any of your own learning into it at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe instead you're like, help me learn some concepts, AI. You learn those concepts and then you say, T, I'm going over here, and you don't have internet connection. You think about it, you write your whole like your draft first.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to think about it. You're starting to like actually like have those cycles that we know our brain needs, and then you feed it back into the AI, and
Yeah.
you're able to go back and
You
forth.
can, but isn't that still thinking about it in the old way that you need to be by yourself, not using AI in order for your brain to be working?
Yeah, that's
And
how our
I'm-
brain works.
No, but I'm saying that you can get that. I think in the future you will be able to get that level of concentrative and creative work, and that's really hard and deep, with you and AI working together to make projects that are even more complicated and complex and crazy that you can even fathom right now, because you and AI will be working together to make them, and it'll be hard and it'll be all of those things that you're saying, but you don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to use the old school way of expanding your mind, when you could be doing it the new school way of expanding your mind, which is like you and AI working on things that would blow Adam Posh's mind, and we can't even fathom at this point.
But it's like it goes, yes, and I'm not disagreeing. I think we're kind of saying the same thing. Is that yes, that could happen. You and the AI are two different things, though. The way that your brain works, the way that you absorb that information, still needs to happen in the same way that a human brain works.
Yeah.
The AI itself is going to be run on data centers and computers and computed through, all those different components, unless, and we're going to get this in the last section,
Sure.
it's actually integrated into your brain, which we will
Right.
have no concept of what that looks like. Is that it takes you as a human time, and that time, that sleep, that boredom, it's like you can't change that unless we go and involve the next 500,000 100,000 years
Sure.
to do that. So while you could go and you can have an engaging conversation, you could read something from AI, you're gonna need to like go to sleep.
Sure.
You're going to have to be
Yes.
bored and
Right.
let that thing absorb into you so that you go back to it later.
Yeah.
And then you engage into that next
You're
step.
so right. Like, even if you are working with AI and doing all of these amazing things and building, projects that we couldn't even conceive right now, you're still going to have to sleep on it.
Yeah.
You're still going to have to, have your body doing the things that your brain needs it to do. It's almost like we take the stuff from the Act 1 that says, here's how brains work.
Correct.
And here's how we learn. I just don't think that we have to go back to the way, like, it always feels like I was listening to a bunch of new, like, Cal Newport stuff, and he was, people would call in and be like, my boss and everyone keeps telling me that I should be using AI to write these reports, and I don't want to, because I feel like this is part of my, that makes me smart enough to know about reports, is that I write the reports myself. And he sort of goes, yes, you should definitely never do that. You should never use AI to write your report. You should always write it your own self. And I sort of think like, that's just the next tool that's helping you do crazier reports and even more complex things. And your brain would also then get to catch up and do deep work in that way, as long as you're getting the rest, and as long as you're getting board time, and as long as you're getting, being able to go off and have vacation and all of that. I think your brain would still be growing in a good way. Doing that, but it could also involve AI, but AI could also be the thing that, makes us like never have to worry about any of that stuff. And then that's the scary part of the future, where it just sort of
Which
atrophies.
People could absolutely choose that.
Right.
But here's what I guess I think he's trying to say, and I don't want to say I know what Cal Newton's trying to infer in this, is that, and this is maybe my concern with this, is that what you're discussing is a gap, though. If you're just going to start to rely more and more and more on the AI to do something crazy, as you describe, like, how do you have enough ability and specialization to push back? how do you develop enough of a skill set and an understanding other than just being a generalist in a specific like area? So if you're, I'm just going to keep using that lawyer thing, is that, you know, you may have the most like bombastic case that you're able to run, but if you don't know the basics of how to run that case or write up that report or where it might be nuanced one way or another, you have not done that. Like, so I think what he's trying to say is, how do we continue to develop our skill? And maybe this goes to what Darth Gorkon says as well, is like the idea of losing artistry. Think about it from a sense of, if you're working with AI to make this amazing piece of art, but you don't know all of the different ways to, you know, these are how you might use a particular color palette. So you draw the eye here so that this whole like this thing you can run through it. And you don't know any of those concepts.
Sure.
You might be producing something crazy and nutso, but are you able to like understand why? Does it matter is another question in a sense, but I mean, I would think it would, because you would want to be able to help direct that.
Right, because part of orchestrating the AI to do the thing that is different and crazy, you need to be able to be at the like mindset level to even think of that type of thing, to be able to even then give it any sort of, you know, worthwhile direction. I can understand that. Like,
it's like programming. I've been making all these applications.
Yeah.
In like, if you had to make those applications right now, would you feel like you could versus like, because I feel like I brought a skill set to that. I spent decades learning how to code and program, so I was like, great, now I know where to say, that's some BS, don't give me that file type, I want this file type. I don't know exactly the coding you just put in there. I know the concepts, the methods, the ways that you have variables in there, and I understand that piece of it, but what you wrote, Claude, like, good job, but at least I knew that it was putting those things together, and then I knew on the back end that it was doing that. If I was just like, give me a program, and it just spit out a little thing that I just double clicked on and it opens an app, and I'm like, yay, an app. And I don't know, that's kind of where I'm stuck in between.
Yeah, because you're right, like, and we should move on, but like
fine.
but like, you know, it does feel a little like old man shouting at the clouds, doesn't it? Like, you need to go back and you need to do it. I could see a younger person coming up to you who is AI native and being like, no way in hell do I need to know all of that background stuff. The AI does that. I don't, like, the AI is now my brain and doesn't do that. Just how you would look at somebody who is 30 years older than you in programming and they're like, you're using, you know, frameworks and stuff. You should be writing that code out, you know, one keystroke at a time. You would say, Grandpa, we don't do it that way anymore. I use this framework, which makes me a million times faster and better than whatever you could code. The AI kid is going to say, I don't need to know all that shit. I need to just be able to know like where I'm going and how awesome it's going to, and what demographics it's hitting and a million other things to produce something that's way better than you could do, Adam. Like that you're trying to then hold on to this old version of work, you know, and I'm blowing ahead of you. And I think my brain is going just as fast and learning just as much by orchestrating those agents in a way that you never could.
So I will agree with you, and I think this is the scary part, because I'd say probably up until this point, we could have a catastrophe and lose all of our knowledge and be able to get back up to this point. We're now in a point where AI is this weird algorithm where we don't even know what the F it's doing.
Right.
And because of that, if we rely on it so much and to be like, put it to the Oracle, magical AI is going to spit the thing out. That's maybe where I'm going at, is that what is the point that our knowledge has become so, you know, like outside of the scope of what AI can do, and we're just like trusting it so much. And so I'm advocating maybe for that gap in between and saying we still need a special. And you know what? One thing else I meant to mention is that, let's say you get to that point. Let's say we just trust AI. There's going to be people that want to learn. There's going to be people that want to continue to grow their brain. And the way that our brains work is based off what we talked about earlier. and you have to have those engaging kind of moments where you're deep diving, you're focusing, you're learning a you're resting, you're bored, you come back and you continue to grow your brain. Some people are going to be cool with it, just be like, I'm just going to zombify myself. That's fine.
Totally.
Whatever.
Like there'll be a Wall-E, section of society, I feel like, that just absorbs content and, talks to each other and sort of does the kind of very shallow, like all life will be shallow work at that point,
Right.
and, in some ways, like, whatever, I guess, if that's how people want to do. I do think as humans, we have so much built into us to say, no, I want to go and try new things and do new stuff and talk with new people and create new ideas, that we will do that maybe in sort of not in a computer based way, right? That we sort of do right now, but maybe more in a kind of community based way or using your hands based way. Because I do think like the idea of coding a website and using your brain to do that could also be the same thing as planting a potato and knowing how that works and how the potato grows and just, like going out every day and weeding it and doing those things. I think like you could also have your brain, be doing stuff that isn't, as economically feasible, right now as it is.
So what I called this is our segment 9. It was the adaptive specialist.
Right.
So what we don't need a generalist, but we also don't need that narrow specialist. It's somebody that has enough depth in their field, but then they can like recompose it. They can use the right tools. They can get to those interfaces.
Yeah.
So it's like depth with adaptability and flexibility. That you're not just purely on the tool and you're not purely just working on this other area. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's in the middle ground there. But that's,
Sure.
I think, where you have to have judgment, taste,
Yeah.
synthesis. These are human things.
Right. We talked about that quite a bit
100%.
in other episodes, right? We talked about like, what do the jobs of the future look like? Like what can humans do that like AI typically doesn't do very well? And all of those things keep coming up, and my biggest concern is like, that seems great as long as you are not in a capitalistic society, right? Because you only need so many of those people, I think, right now, at least with the businesses and the sort of world that we live in right now. You don't need as many people like that in the job market that you have right now. So then that's lots of unemployed people who have nothing to do except for Wall-E world.
Yeah, it's 100%. As we start to get to like the close of what we're talking about, I think we open this piece, and as an educator and someone that works in education,
right.
One of my biggest things is I am 100% on the critical thinking, the learning components. I practice what we're talking about today. I go and I write prompts outside of things and then I put it in. And that's because I really want to have some sort of cognition of what I'm trying to prompt.
You set up entire, studios with outside of your, right at the edge of your abilities, which I feel like is such a brain booster.
But here's there was a concept I wanted to bring into this, maybe a future one, and this was just to kind of scratch the surface of it, is that if we've got to this point where we're feeling that our brain is basically, that's how we have to learn, and it takes evolution to get any further, is the next thing to integrate AI directly into our brains.
Yeah, I mean, you and Ray Kurzweil, right?
I mean, and I'm not going to go in depth in this particular one, but the idea now that the next logical step is that we're figuring out, because they're already starting to figure this out, like Neuralink. It's these like threaded pieces that go into your cerebral cortex that you can like take a little bit of electrical signals. You're able to like move a cursor on a screen, make all these different, like, we're getting there.
Yeah.
It's like still far away, but these are the moments where we're starting to integrate this. And at what point is it going to be like Cortana taking over your Master Chief body at some point in the future?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Freezing your exoskeleton so that you can't move.
Right.
I mean, like, dang it. Now, the AI is control over me. Yeah.
But if you think about where we're headed, and the next step of this process is that we really talked about this this idea of deep work and diving into it, but we kind of scratch the surface too around the people that don't want to do it. And when you start to think about our capitalist society, maybe let's pin that off to the side, and let's say we get to a post-scarcity world.
Right.
We get to a point where you really don't need that many people to work. The ones that are just gung-ho about wanting to be in that field, they will be there. They will be the ones that are working and they're like thinking about that. And so to some, this is going to be where we might have another kind of future that's out there. Like if we can rely on AI and maybe let's say we get a universal basic income, right? Sure. Wouldn't then the plight of humans maybe change a little bit? Where we're like, I want to live a more fulfilling life. I want to like explore the things that like really fill me up as a human. I want to go and be an artist. I want to go and do these things. And so maybe it's not AI that's doing this. It's like all of this infrastructure around it that's being trying to like be sold to us to make this work. The attention economy.
Yeah.
If we could get away from some of that, I truly believe like what did they say is that if people are given, and there were some studies on universal basic income, they said that people didn't just like abuse it.
Yeah.
What they started to do is like they explored things that they appreciated. They were more entrepreneurial.
Yep.
They would start to think about their health in a different way and how they could affect society.
And education.
And education.
And they educated themselves with it.
They wanted to continue to grow their, and so, oh my God, like what if we just, pivoted our whole perspective on how we were going? And sure, AI could be on the side doing all the other BS stuff that we don't want to do, but because it's helped us get past this idea that, everyone has to work to make their meaning. And going back to the call out, what we started at the very beginning, that narrative piece that we talked about that makes meaning in our life. It's that right now our meaning in our story has been generally made around
Your
work.
job. Yep. Like when you meet somebody for the first time, hey, what do you do? Right?
What do you
we
do?
spend more time at our job than we do at anything else in our lives. That like you talk about, like that framing of your story, like your job is a huge part of that story. And if all the shallow, all the deep work now and all the stuff that can make society is now just AI, I feel like that is the utopian side of AI, is that you get out of the capitalist sort of groove in the road and we're able to like bounce our little cart out of that groove. And we say, no, like society shouldn't be set up to make money. Like society should be set up to just be the benefit of everyone who is in the world. And I think when you do that, you say, great, we'll just give everybody housing and food and, water and stuff like that. And maybe you can make little stuff around the edges, but it's more about like, you connecting with people, you feeling worthwhile in your community. It's not you making, 1% more, equity in the company that you work for. It's you making your neighborhood 10% better because you grow all the vegetables, for it. And I do feel that like that is a great way to go, because I do feel like we've been sort of hoodwinked a little bit into making jobs and that sort of way of developing your brain way more important because it's so economically important that we focus on that so much, right? Like think how many times you have like mid-year things to talk about your job and to talk about how you need to be better at it and what you could be improving and all of that. You don't have that for your personal life. No one is coming to Adam Pocious and being like, let's look at the last 6 months and see how much sleep you had. Let's see how much like stress levels you had. Let's talk about how you're going to improve those in your life and create a performance enhancement plan that gets you to be a better human. That isn't happening. But like in an AI future where all that is sort of taken care of, I could see sort of those types of things. Maybe it's your own little personal AI or something that has your back, and it's trying to make your life the best one. And I feel like that will look a hell of a lot different than the lives we have right now.
100%. And that's a really good way to like kind of put the bow on this. And It's going to take some intentionality. We're
Yeah.
not going to want to stop learning as humans.
No.
We're not going to want to stop growing in
No.
these roles. We're not here to necessarily grow to work. Like the fact that you have to, work to live. And like, it sounds so weird just to say that out loud, but it's like, why can't we live to live, you know?
exactly.
And the other thing with AI that we've got to at this point is we've spent all these years deep learning and doing this work. And doesn't AI belong to the people?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's been built on years and decades and centuries of of what we've been able to document.
Yeah.
Now wrapped up into it. And why should these other companies own that BS? It's that.
I think someone's gonna run for president on that exact message, like coming up in maybe not the next one, but the one after that.
I really appreciate this conversation, Ryan.
Yeah.
It was
Good one.
something I wanted to dive in for a little while. So.
I appreciate it. Love the idea. Got to dig into some of that deep work, research and everything, and brought up a lot of emotions as I was thinking about it. Of just sort of like, what are we doing with our life? How do we make ourselves smarter and better, and not fall into a trap of atrophy? So great topic.
Heck yeah. And it seems like people heard it.
Yay.
And we did it on multiple streams.
Hey, yeah, that's right. The airwaves were filled with our voices and our pictures. Great job.
That was fantastic. Well, it seems like this worked.
Yeah.
In a good position. So
I know. I think we're good. I mean, I know you aren't feeling well, so if you want to end the show sort of slightly early,
I think we're gonna have to call it a tea for the night.
I would be good with that.
Travel the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So you know what? I would say maybe just to end.
Yeah.
So formally, we're done with the paradox.
Done with the show.
Some interesting things that I got to do in the last couple of days, AI related.
Oh,
there was an education series for some of our senior leadership around AI, and I was
Cool.
invited to be an expert guest in it. And so it was really like a pivotal moment in that. And I don't want to, dox or say exactly who I, was doing this for, but I went into this this conversation with skeptics, somebody that was anti-AI.
Really?
And for a lot of the reasons we brought up tonight,
Yeah.
like it's gonna take this way, and so one of the big things that I always push out is that I am against our critical thinking being taken
Sure.
away,
Right.
and so I showed them some ways that they could approach it, and they're like, "That is a freaking amazing!" Like I didn't think
Nice.
about it in that way, and convinced them to kind of pivot their thought process on how they could use it while still being in control of their thinking. And it was a really good moment.
I talked about maybe sort of pitching a little bit or just kind of revealing a little bit of the next time. I think I want to do like a what is the anti-AI movement? Like where is it at? How big is it? How much of it that will affect what is going on in the future? And like, not for nothing, but should we be part of the anti-AI movement? Like, I think you can use AI and still be like anti-AI. I don't know. That's my thinking. That's sort of my general thing for the next episode. Even though we should say maybe the next episode right now, the one in 2 weeks, might look slightly different because I'm going to be on vacation.
Or we might take a vacation.
And we might just take a vacation. We might just say.
I think it's time for us to take a vacation.
We just take a week off for it. So we'll see.
We'll let you know on how that
Yeah.
goes. So Ryan, I want to tell you one, because I'm always developing an AI thing, and so you want to see my new simple AI that I
Okay.
created?
Let's do it.
Because I'm always doing.
No,
one.
totally.
All right. So context. You know what a steno notebook is, correct? Are you familiar with those? So think about a small notebook, half a sheet of page, like this sized, ring, the ring binder at the top, and you flip pages over like that. Okay, it's a steno. I don't have one that's like close by right now.
The steno means it's the hinge is at the top.
The hinge is at the top, and it's a bunch of lines on it. And so when I get really into like a very task-oriented moment, of course, there's phones and lists that you can put everywhere in every app possible. Well, I wrote this list out in my steno notebook, and I always just draw a little square, and then what I need to do and what I need to remember. And then I always do it just like stream of thought. So imagine this one page with every one of the lines filled up with a little square and then the line of what I needed to do.
Okay.
And then, of course, as I start clicking them off or Xing them out, on occasion I'll go and get a highlighter and I'll highlight them. Oh, these are the ones that have to do with budget. These are the ones that I need to do tomorrow. And then I'll give a couple different colors, like blues, yellows, or whatever. And very analog. And I always default back to analog in those moments. And then this is me more like testing and thinking of things. I was like, I remember when I was telling you the story where I took a picture of the whiteboard and I was like, explain what this was.
Yeah.
So I took a picture of my notebook and I'm like, here's how I write my notebooks. I want to build an app that is just like this analog experience that has like a hidden layer of advanced tools. But if I wanted to use it as simple as possible, make it like this.
Okay.
And this one I did not spend a lot of time on because I thought spending a lot of time on would create a challenge. So I call this one literally just list.
Okay.
And so let's look at our list.
Nice.
And so it is literally as simple as you could do an indent on your list.
Okay.
That allows you to have like children of a parent.
Mm-hmm.
But if you click on over here, you can just put a little date to it. You could give it a little bit of a priority. So if I was like, hey, this is urgent, it puts a little thing around the little box over here.
Okay.
And then I could unindent it.
Okay.
And that is all it does. And if I
Nice.
hit save, like you literally can go in here and say like, talk with Ryan. And it puts a little list item in.
Nice.
And then if you highlight it, you can reorder the items. And that was all I actually wanted to do because I had clicked everything off in my list.
Isn't part of it though that you have a physical notebook and that you like things?
100%.
You know, I feel like if you looked at Adam's house, you can only see, this like umbrella, or thing back from it. But like Adam has a lot of things, like he wants like physical, tangible things. And isn't the notebook part of the fun of it?
So I would say 100%. The one challenge that I always was running into is, okay, imagine I had like this. I would click this one, I would click this one, and I would be like, I kind of wish those weren't like there. I kind of want to just see.
Like the OCD Adam wants to like organize it better than a printed page could do.
Because then what I would typically do is like flip the page, redo the notes, and like reorder them on the second page.
My God, really?
Yeah, like sometimes I will put a list item just to click the list item off.
Yeah, oh sure.
And so then this is where I was like, but then I could be cool because let's say I created this little like control where I can say, just show me everything that's opened or show me everything that's done. And then I can kind of, but this is very much made to not create like this massive list and you're managing once the list is done, like just delete it and you're done.
Sure.
It's like, it's trash.
Nice.
And so you
Nice.
can
It
export
looks
it
good.
and import it and then see how this is highlighted. I made it to where you can click it and you'd be like, oh, I want this one to be like teal.
Oh,
and,
sure.
and that's it. And so you could put your little things.
Yeah, nice.
And it is.
So have you been
simple as
using
that.
it?
I started to use it, and I have it up on my computer off to the side.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I am less technical when it comes to or writing out the things. Like I'm not just very neat about it. I also have a small notebook and 5 by 8.5 or whatever, and how mine looks is just like scribbled all over because in the moment I have a hard time taking notes and listening. Like that is just how my brain works. And if I'm writing down what people are saying and what I should be doing, I just like physically cannot listen to them at the same time. And so my notes are very like scratchy and like just sort of one word of a thing. Right. And then what I have to do every time is like the minute that meeting is over, Like I will be 5 minutes late to the next meeting because I have to be like, I use Trello still. And I'll be like, I have to put this in a board in Trello. And so then I just write it all out myself, like looking at the notes and being like, okay, I know what that means only because I just wrote it down, 3 minutes ago, as opposed to if I spend a day and have to go back and look at that. So I never look at my notes ever again. Like they are in a book and I keep them on the little shelf, but like I could not read them. There's nothing. I never look at them again. The output is Trello. And the only reason I keep the physical notes is because it's the easiest way to write things down quickly. And that's it. So
I know
it's weird.
It's funny because you and I are so different.
It's true.
Is that I write everything that somebody's saying in like little short phrases, and that's the only way I can like absorb what they're saying is by writing it out.
I can't do it. Like, have you noticed that even when we do the show, I hardly look at the notes?
Yeah.
Like because if I'm looking at notes, I'm not listening to what you're saying. Like, and if I'm reading what is on the page, I'm not like saying it in a way that I feel like I'm telling what I want to be thinking.
I see.
So like I have to do it all in the back end and then just hope that like the things that I am saying are coming out like in the right way. The only way that I could do it is sort of like very high level topics. Yeah. You're like, all right, we're at section 2 where we're talking about this type of thing. Okay, then I can sort of glance at that and know what we're talking about. Just a weird, just whether ways how brains work, right?
It's really good to know that because I can make sure I work. I want to show you a conference that I went to in my notes. I forgot my notebook.
Oh, what?
So here is how I took notes for a conference.
I just feel like it's very organized, out the gate.
But every one of these is like a conference section that I would write, and I like numbered them through. And I don't know, I'd have to write, and I'm never gonna read any of these because it absorbed into my head by writing it.
Right? Yeah. Like I feel like that's notes in general.
Yeah.
It's like. It's the writing of it and the organizing of it that puts it in your brain, not the going back to it and looking at it.
We just talked about neuroscience, right? And it's
sure.
it's a deeper dive of like actually physically manipulating something, looking at it, using your brain in different ways.
It's why if Gemini produced this, it would mean nothing to you.
No, yeah, exactly. But do you know what's crazy? And I don't know if you've been doing this, is if I went and took pictures of this, it will just transcribe it into text.
Yeah.
That's
freaking transcription
so
is good.
helpful.
Well, and yours is nicely written,
Yeah.
like it will take garbage, stuff and translate it in, I feel like it does a great job. Also very grainy pictures of text, like stuff where I was like, oh man, what is that? What is that called? OCR or something like that? Like OCR, but before AI, they would have butchered that. And now it's like, sure, whatever, man. I'll take all that, write it out perfect, like bolding and highlighting and bullet pointing and all the formatting and everything. Does a great job.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Beautiful.
Well, I really enjoyed the show tonight,
Yeah.
Ryan. Even though it was a sprint to get here,
and you're sick and all the things, but yeah, great show.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you either the next time that we get on with you.
Yeah.
All. So until then,
Exactly.
have a good evening.
Hey.
Enjoy your Memorial Day.
Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.